Wherever I go, the wind follows, and the wind smells like rain.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man.
Whip, whip. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast, where we're covering Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. With me today on my left we have...
Hello everybody, I am a geeky writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And in case this is your first podcast of ours that you're listening to, thank you so much for listening. Be sure you can give us a follow over on TikTok and Instagram at Cheap Seat Critics. But if you remove that S at the end, at Cheap Seat Critic is our Twitter handle. We're also Cheap Seat Critics podcast over on Facebook, and we're on YouTube at Cheap Seat Critics if you want to see PNG tubers we have and like a movie slideshow we do. And I believe we also have a LetterBox if you're interested in that as well.
So Spider-Verse.
Yep.
Yes. Being this is the season 8 decades for the 2010s. It was, I think, one of the difficult decades to cover, since it's the most recent decade to completion, since the choice after this to wrap up the season will be the 2020s of an incomplete decade currently. But I believe our first vote, or overall understanding to get to number one pick, was Into the Spider-Verse, with second place being Parasite and third place being Still Alice.
Yeah. There was this... It was this decade. It was this one, like from the 80s and onwards. There was a lot of back and forth. Like those took the longest, I think, to hammer down.
Well, Ryder,
Yeah.
I remember you had one pick for this decade.
Because it's the only. I mean, at the time, it's the only one that stood out.
No, it makes sense. Makes complete sense. And if you're curious as to what that pick Ryder chose was, that supplemental content we have may come out at some time.
We'll see.
Just saying. If you demand it, we'll get
Starts
to
with an A.
It's very obvious.
I believe let's start with our history on Into the Spider-Verse. Let's go with let's just go down the line, Ryder. What's your history?
All right. So I had no interest in seeing this movie originally, but I was visiting my friends in a different state, and they pretty much said we're gonna go see this movie, and we were just looking to do an activity together, right? So I went in, saw this movie, and was really, really grateful that I saw this in theaters. It blew me away in terms of its visual art style. This feels like a comic book put on screen almost. And I do say that with the highest praise, because obviously we have lots of comic book movies now, from Batman to Iron Man to Captain America to all of what Marvel's doing, for better or for worse, or DC, what they're doing, for better or for worse. And this, to me, felt the most like a comic book movie, because it felt like, it was animated to look like a comic book on screen. I think it really comes through. Since then, I have rewatched it many times, because I have since gotten everyone in my family obsessed with the movie. I've gotten some of my friends obsessed with the movie. And this is probably, I wouldn't say it's the most well-written Spider-Man movie, but I think it's my favorite. It does a lot very well. The story was good, and I still love it, man. It was very, very enjoyable for me. Even now, rewatching with an objective lens, I obviously still caught some more flaws, but I still think a lot of it holds up pretty well. So that is it for me. Love this film. I'm kind of happy we're covering it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Crimson, you're up next.
All right. So when this came out, height of Marvel was going. We were ramping up to Endgame. I think 2019 was Endgame, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's a fact I didn't have written down, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, this was... I mean, up until Endgame, I saw, I think, all the MCU movies. I know this isn't MCU. But I saw, I think, all the other Marvel movies during that time as well. So that fell in line with another Marvel movie. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I went to theaters and saw it. with my pals, and yeah, that's not much more than that. I saw it, I think, the second time just for this podcast, so I haven't seen it since it came out. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. Certainly not my least favorite. Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Okie doke. I guess that leaves me for third. This is my third time seeing the film. Saw it one time in theaters, and I saw it one time afterward. It's a Sony animation film, which I'm familiar with their style, and the work done by Phil Lord, who I believe was the writer for this film, or one of the screenplay writers for the film. And I think he does very funny work. He does really good, funny stuff. And not to discredit everyone else who worked on the film. Phil Lord is someone I
When you're familiar with, yeah.
Yes, familiar with. That's kind of all my history on it. It's a Spider-Man film. It's a really good Spider-Man film. It's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. Okay. I guess with that, go into facts I have found. Don't worry, it's not crazy. I got the standard facts to go over, and then 5 additional facts. And as always, take these with a grain of salt. I found them on the internet. Who knows how much they are true and how much they are a lie. So, the initial release date for the U.S. of this film was December 14th, 2018. The runtime is 1 hour and 57 minutes, including credits and end credit scene. Budget was 90 million USD with a box office of 384.3 million USD. Its rating is PG and genre is family/action. And I guess this is somewhat of a fun fact, but kind of easy to find. It had 6 directors.
Interesting.
It had Rodney Rothman, who did. I have little touch-ups of some other previous work these directors have done to help. So Rodney Rothman was a screenplay writer for 22 Jump Street. Peter Ramsey was the director of Rise of the Guardians. Justin K. Thompson was a production designer of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Little Big Planet. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Joaquim Dos Santos was a co-executive producer for The Legend of Korra. Kemp Powers was the story and screenplay writer for Soul. And lastly, Bob Pereschetti, I believe, was head of story and in the animation department for Puss in Boots.
The first one?
The first one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a... Well, that's either means it was development hell, or they were all just finding the talents.
Yeah, that kind of goes into my first fun fact here. The makers of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse wanted to create something special with Stan Lee's cameo appearance, which ended up being his final voice acting role. Since the 180 animators working on the film were all big Marvel fans who wanted to draw Stan Lee, he appears in more scenes than just his cameo. He can be sitting in pretty much every subway train featured in the movie. Hit pause whenever a train goes past, you'll probably see him.
That's true. I actually did see him a second time in this.
I believe he's also walking on the crosswalk when Peter and Miles are laying on the back.
Thanks, New York. Yeah, I saw him there too. That one I was more familiar with. I didn't see the train one until this last watch through.
Fun fact number 2. The 2 powers that distinguish Miles Morales from the other characters who have held the title of Spider-Man are Venom Strike, which is the ability to electrocute people by touch, and invisibility. The invisibility was a tough one for the animators to depict on screen. The portrayal of Miles' invisibility in the film went through around 70 different designs before settling on what it would look like.
Yeah, that
They
doesn't
didn't go
surprise
Halo.
me. Yeah.
Fact number 3. As a lifelong comic book fan, Nicolas Cage was excited to be offered the role of Spider-Man Noir in this film, and even more excited when the filmmakers told him to have fun with it. Since his version of Spidey is a hard-boiled detective from the 1930s, depicted in black and white inspired by classic noirs of that era, Cage took inspiration from Humphrey Bogart, one of the icons of the film noir movement, in his fast-talking vocal performance. Cage believed that his Spider-Verse character would appeal to both adults who like noirs and kids who are interested in learning about them.
Fucking nailed it.
He was a solid Spider-Man.
Fact 4, in the alternate universe featuring Peter B. Parker, he's going through a messy divorce with Mary Jane Watson. This is a reference to an unproduced script draft that Sam Raimi was working on for Spider-Man 4. Peter and MJ would have been married and later gotten a divorce when it was revealed that Peter had an affair with Felicia Hardy, Black Cat. Raimi later changed his mind about his storyline, feeling that it made Peter too unlikable, and the film was canceled when Sony refused to give Sam Raimi's the time to rewrite it.
Peter being a cheater, I don't like that.
Yeah, I'll say this kind of fixed that script a little bit. At least that storyline of that version. I would have preferred something closer to this.
And the last fun fact I have here, fun fact number 5, the Brooklyn let me start over. The Brooklyn Bridge, seen in the final fight scene between Miles and Kingpin, is a reference to the color scheme of the bridge seen in the opening title sequence of Daredevil.
I wouldn't know. I haven't seen Daredevil in a long time.
Daredevil, the TV show. Sorry.
Yeah, I figured.
I'm just kind of not Daredevil, the Ben Affleck film, not that one. Case of confusion. And that's all the facts I have.
All right.
Now, before we get into the film itself, with what we're going to do this time is popcorn style. So anywhere in the movie, you can just popcorn to, and we'll go over. Apologies for those who were expecting an act structure, or linear, or scene by scene for how fantastic this film is, but we're going with popcorn. Deal with it. Sorry. Before we begin, do either of you two have anything left to say?
Nope.
All right, sweet. Well, let's just go right into this Spider-Verse movie. Let's start with Crimson. Crimson, anywhere in the film, where do you want to go?
Thank you. I have lots of screenshots. I appreciate it.
Well, actually, my first point will not be a scene. It will be an overarching thing, which Ryder and I will probably talk in depth about here.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
The music. Brr. More specifically, the beginning.
The
here.
music for both soundtrack and score, or one or the other?
Soundtrack is in vocal music.
Okay. Soundtrack. Got
it. So, in the first 9 minutes, there were 6 songs. 6 in 9 minutes. That is, I think that's a bit overuse of music. I know scenes they used them for had certain meanings behind them. There's purpose, and not just willy-nilly thrown in. But it was, I think it was too much. It was a in-your-face overload. Because then throughout the movie, it did tamper off. There was longer times between songs. But they used 6 in 9 minutes, which was pretty crazy to me. I don't know if you guys felt overloaded with the music usage in the beginning.
Are you including like the juxtaposition for the jokes in like Peter A. Parker's backstory? Which is like, you know, when he starts doing the fucking edgy Tobey Maguire dance and the music changes?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, vocals. Well, I guess they had vocal. I didn't count that.
Okay. Having seen the movie a few
that
times
would be more
now.
than 6.
Having seen the few movies a few times now, I have to admit I'm probably a little bit desensitized to that. I can sort of see the complaint though, because I also I'm in the same category with you normally, Crimson, of where the music can get very oversaturating at times. For better or for the worse, Guardians of the Galaxy did ruin this for a lot of other movies, because Guardians of the Galaxy I think is very, very on point with the music choices and stuff like that. Usually all of them have purpose and they're spread out enough so they don't oversaturate the screen. And lots of movies have since tried to emulate that without the magic. I think this movie gets pretty close, but not quite, because I think I agree with you. Ultimately here at the beginning, it is a little bit on the oversaturated side. I think when Miles goes to see Aaron, his uncle, I think that's the first time. I think that's when I started to feel a little bit, not sick of it, but it felt a little overwhelming. Because I think the last song with Aaron when he's making his Great Expectations art piece on the wall. I think that was the halfway through that one. I think when that one came quiet and cut off, I think that's when I really enjoyed the quiet a lot more in that scene. So it's definitely meant to feel very crowding, but it's very weird because I agree with you, but I think it's also the point because Miles is feeling very crowded, if that makes sense. Because we're kind of shuffling through the first day, more or less, very, very fast. And the music is kind of just to help us feel that quick, rapid pace most of the time.
Like I said, there's still purpose behind them. I just think they used too many.
I don't know if I can. I don't think I can give that I don't see that as an objective fault. I think it's personal, unfortunately. At least for me. I'd be happy here.
I guess an example I have in the early parts here is I didn't write down any of the names of the songs. I just wrote "song" in my notes. But the song where he's listening on his headphones and he's getting ready to pack to go to school.
Sunflower.
Yeah.
We get that song, packing up, walking through the kitchen, all that, and then we cut to him outside with his mom.
And
they fade the song going up into that, cuts, little blurb, straight to a new song again. And obviously the purpose of this new song is a high energy when he's meeting all of his old middle school friends or elementary, whatever. He's going to middle school. All of his old friends show his energy running through the streets. There's purpose, but we went from song to song immediately like that, and it felt like a lot of that in the beginning here.
Crimson, would you say that to you it affected the flow of the beginning of the film?
Or, I wouldn't say it affected the flow. I think the overload thing, I don't remember which one you said that, but I think sensory overload, I think, is a fair assessment of the barrage of songs in the beginning.
Yeah, I think the first one. I really like the first one, which is Sunflower, because it's pulling us into Miles, and we're getting introduced to him in kind of that very normal way. In that, sometimes you sing along to your favorite songs without knowing the lyrics, kind of thing. It's a very endearing thing when the first song plays, and then when we transition to the next one. I'm just replaying the scene in my head, so it's. There is definitely a bit to sensory overload. The problem is it's purposeful, which is why it's very difficult to kind of find that balance of at least critiquing it for me and as far as the writing standpoint is concerned. Because I don't think I felt the flow issue that you described, Sprinks, or that you brought up, Sprinks. So
yeah, I brought it up in case it was
what he was looking for.
Into Crimson's objective, like if it affected the pacing of the film for him.
Yeah, I don't think it affected pacing. I think it's just more the choice of using so many for me. If I was to put it through an objective lens, it's the decision to put in that much in a short period of time.
Okay.
Because our introduction with what'd you say, Sunflower?
Yes.
Yeah, besides Sunflower, which we all know appears again in the film, did any of those other 5 songs appear again, or were they used solely just for this transitional piece of Miles at the beginning of the film?
I know there's one song used later, but
I feel it's mostly transitional.
I didn't discern the songs very much.
I feel it's mostly transitional with regards to Miles. Like, it's the idea of just give the feeling of a crowded city, almost. Like I said, for me, I tie the over-sensory feeling into, like, they're trying to make you feel a little bit like Miles. In that sense, he's being a little bit overwhelmed by everything that's happening. But I fully respect that's not in the script. So it's kind of... I don't know. It's pretty much where I'm kind of sitting on it. I don't know how to think about that.
And there's, I guess, one more thing with this the Sunflower song. It is a creative choice. I don't think this should be marked down objectively or anything, but they use the song diegetically. It's in universe music. But let's say the part where it's silent outside with his mom, if we are to believe the music's coming from his headphones, there would still be music at this point because the first song didn't end from what we see. It just cuts to outside, no music, and then we pick up with the new song once he starts walking down the street. So I think that's just a little bit of a lack of consistency with it being diegetic, because we also get his roommate later where we're getting music through his headset. So it seems to be something they're sticking with.
Well,
So you find it a problem that when he's saying goodbye to his mom, he paused his music or turned it off?
Well, see, the thing is, there is a time change as well, though. So I don't really have an issue with the fact that the song stopped in that instance.
I mean, the song could have been over.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't see him play the next. We don't see him play the next song. If you guys want to go that route, I know what the reason is. You can't just. It would be weird if they just had this energetic song while he's having this calm talk with his mom.
Yeah.
That would mess with the flow. So I get the purpose behind it. I'm just.
You would have preferred the consistency of like, okay, then when he leaves his mom's doorstep, he clicks something on his headphones and the songs continue. Something like that is what you're saying.
With the consistency they're doing with the diegetic music, I'd say yes. I think that would be better. But just throwing it out there.
Okay. I'm just trying to think. Are you leaning more because you're making it sound this whole spiel that it's a bit much? Is it leaning more on the side of use of the film towards the audience or use of the character in the world of Miles?
I mean, it's doing both. The first Sunflower song, that is to build up his character, but it's also for the audience as well. The example of it being quiet for the mom, that's more for the audience, because I'm sure he'd still have the music on his shoulders. He just wouldn't be listening to it. And then he'd put him on and then actually listen to his music. But that's it, I suppose.
Okay. Well, I guess with that, Ryder, why don't you take us somewhere?
Sure. I'll actually talk about, shockingly, our introduction to Peter A. Parker, the first Peter Parker that we meet. I think it's a very, very good tool to kind of bring us into, like, we basically fast track the classic Spider-Man origin story, because at the point of the release of this movie, we had 2 origin stories and a third one nearly completed. No. This is before. It's okay. It's Homecoming, it's Far From Home, and then No Way Home. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Far From Home and No Way Home hadn't come out yet. So we had at this point we've had plenty of Spider-Man origin stories like on the big screen. So I'm kind of happy they fast tracked it, but it also gives us insight as well as to how this Spider-Man operates. Even though we don't with him for very long, it tells us everything we need to know about this world, this Spider-Man, and then it kind of neatly transitions into Miles Morales. And I think as a tool in terms of storytelling, I think they did an excellent job with that. And then obviously to talk about the opening credits too, they did the whole universes colliding thing. So like they changed the logos up a bit and made them look like they're from different universes, which is nice touch, I think. Because the opening does a lot for the film, and I liked it. So
I could go a little hand on that, which is 2 Easter eggs I caught to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs in this film. The first one being the beginning of the Columbia Studios logo at the beginning, changing to the banana, which is the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs one where a banana knocks her off her pedestal. The second one is, I had to go back and pause to find it, but when the collider starts sucking everything in to explode, it takes the Flinsdiffer machine.
The what?
Oh.
The machine that makes the food.
Yeah. Flinsdiffer.
All right.
So being that they're both Sony Animation Picture films, seems easy enough, and I believe Phil Lord also did Cloudy with a Chance. So
kind of a, and I didn't talk about this because we were kind of talking about the Seeing Crimson, but one of the neat details is that Miles is drawing the stickers he's going to put up when we're first meet him.
Mm-hmm. Which is a nice detail.
Yeah, Sprinks.
I mean, this movie pays a lot of attention to details and callbacks.
Mhm.
Lots of callbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, one good detail, and I don't know if it's just a rule when it comes to Spider-Man movies. It could be, but it seems when a villain is introduced, every version of Spider-Man henceforth has to stick to that instance of that villain. So,
Like it's that villain for their universe kind of thing?
for any universe. Which kind of gives me the thought of why they used Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin to bring back in Far From Home. Or, sorry, No Way Home. No Way Home. And same with Alfred Molina as Doc Ock and all the other actors who have come back to play their past versions of villains in Amazing Spider-Man and the Raimi-verse Spider-Man. I don't know if it's a ruling that those are the characters that have to play said characters. Like they couldn't, like if they wanted a Green Goblin, they'd have to go with an alternate dimension Green Goblin, or they'd have to be with Willem Dafoe.
I don't understand
And-
your criticism or idea here.
Yeah, I'm
You've lost us.
Yeah, I'm confused about the idea.
The idea is in this film, when capturing, it's a creative approach. In this film, when tackling a said fourth villain that has already been established somewhere in some form of Spider-Man, they went with an alternate version. So, for example, in this film, the Green Goblin is a huge, hulking monster with wings that has not been shown before in any other version of Spider-Man. I'm sure if they wanted the glider and the outfit, that they would have reached out to Willem Dafoe to voice the character. Or if it's a ruling where they wouldn't be allowed unless it is said Willem Dafoe.
Didn't Amazing Spider-Man 2 have a Green Goblin as well?
It had.
That wasn't Willem Dafoe?
No, it was not Green.
Or Hobgoblin? Whatever the...
Yeah, it was Harry Osborn.
Yeah, so we've had two Harry Osborns. Does that break your
But no, it
theory?
doesn't, because I believe they were two different villains. They're both Harry Osborn playing a villain, but one was New Goblin, and I think one was... Unfortunately, I have not completed Amazing Spider-Man 2 in completion to know what the name of that version of the Goblin is. I don't know if it's Hobgoblin, Green Goblin, New Goblin.
I think
I believe they
having
have
seen the
it.
movie, all I remember is him being called Goblin.
Okay. Then it could have just been Goblin. Maybe that's a way to get away from the word's sake. Out of all this example, one that does stand out, yes, is Venom. Because you have the Topher Grace Venom in Spider-Man 3, and then the
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy Venom. They're the same Venoms, and they're both Eddie Brock. That's the only thing that comes to my knowledge that breaks it.
Well, we don't have anything contradicting anything in Tom Holland's universe yet either. He doesn't have his own Green Goblin that we know of. He also doesn't have his own version of Doc Ock that we know
Doc Ock
of.
or Lizard, Electro, Sandman,
Yeah,
any of
he
those. Yeah.
He hasn't encountered them. I think, to be honest with you, Springs, the reason I think they chose not to do that is just because of oversaturation.
But they haven't done that with any Spider-Man beforehand. I mean, every time they introduce a villain in a film, it's a new character.
Well,
all I have to do is
a new universe.
All I have to do is point out the Green Goblins in the Amazing Spider-Man. The Goblin is still there as a character. You view them as different characters, but they're technically the same in the sense of that it's basically a choice that they're making. They don't want to oversaturate with the same character. It's like, oh, this is going to get into the Batman Joker discussion. It's like the Joker doesn't necessarily need to be part of Batman's story at all if you're a good script writer or a good writer. But a lot of people like to do that because Joker he's a heavyweight name to bring in with the Batman character. Green Goblin is a heavyweight name.
If you want to say 99% of the Matt Reeves Batman, they did that.
Yeah.
But yes, Green Goblin is a big out-of-weight name to go with Spider-Man.
Yeah. I don't... Okay, I guess I'm still lost on the point you're drawing to this, because I know you're... I guess you're... It's... The fact that the new Green Goblin is being monstrous is different for you. Is that
That's what allows me to go with it works, but I don't know if it's a ruling when it comes to Spider-Man films because of how they go about it with
okay.
every new piece of Spider-Man film.
I see what you mean.
Uh,
Like they're okay. Now I understand. So I'm gonna rephrase this back to you to make sure I understand. So you don't know that it's a rule that they change the Green Goblin design as a character going from iteration to iteration because it's like required by law, or it's a choice that they're making because they're different universes.
Yes,
Okay.
because I know the Sony has they have the what was it law some kind of law thing where they have to make a movie of Spider-Man every 5 years or within 5 years in order to keep keep the name.
Keep the rights.
Otherwise, it goes back to Marvel. Yeah. Which is why they made Venom, which is why they made Spider-Verse, and I believe they're doing some
Morbius,
luchador,
Craven,
yeah,
a
the
whole bunch
Craven
of stuff
film,
coming.
and yeah, coming out to keep that sake of Spider-Man with them. But I don't know if that contradicts what's already been made and out, because I find it a little weird that another film with like Rhino. Like Rhino's in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 at the very end, but there's nothing else with Rhino. Or I don't know, Doc Ock. There's no other Otto Octavius version of Doc Ock out there. And the Doc Ock they went with in this film was Olivia Octavius.
Okay.
We see two Doc Ocks in this. We see Olivia, and then the Doc Ock Gwen was fighting in her universe when she got sucked into Miles' universe.
True. Unfortunately, we don't know. You're talking about in Gwen's world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's
Where
fighting.
it's a mechanical.
You see the tentacles
one.
and mechanical
Yes.
aspect
They're
of
mechanical.
it. Yeah.
We don't know if that was Otto. So, and there was no name given for that other than the tentacles to resemble Doc Ock. I also, when Doc Ock was introduced in this one, it was until it was explained later that if it was Olivia Octavius, Carolyn Traynor, Serena Patel, it could have been different. Who knows what version of the Doc Ock it was? But I don't. But I mean, none of us will know the answer if it's a ruling that they have to go with something different when introducing, or if it's an actual choice that they've been doing since the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man came out, kind of.
Potential curveball. What if we include the Sony Spider-Man games?
I don't know. Any video games.
Yeah, if we threw in games, then this whole thing I'm saying goes out the window.
Oh, we see is it Across the Multiverse? That's the new one?
Across the Spider-Verse?
In the trailer, yeah, Across the Spider-Verse. In the trailer, you see the PS1 Spider-Man, so that they do incorporate the video games in this multiverse as well, and just other properties in the multiverse of this show or franchise.
They also have the Insomniac Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that would totally break down what I'm saying, or break it. But I don't know if it's in that instance, then what they've done because this isn't Across the Spider-Verse we're talking about, but in Across, you're saying they use the Spider-Mans from video games, one of them being like the Insomniac Spider-Man, which is a cameoed suit in the Spider Lair in this film. That villain is Mr. Negative. If that would be a ruling that they don't do in Mr. Negative for a film because of that connection that's established in this film and Across the Spider-Verse film, then sure, maybe it was a select choice of which Spider-Man game characters they could use in Across to connect the universes. I don't know the ruling. Okay. But if you're saying it's all in any, because it's a universe, universe anything, then yeah, it would break everything because there's so many games that have all these other characters in it.
Okay, so is this a criticism you have of the film, or is this just like something you're wondering about because of the film?
Both. The film doesn't break it for me as a thought because the versions of villains in the film are so multiversally different and alternate than other ones established in previous Spider-Man media.
How is it a criticism?
Or film.
Okay, you're gonna have to explain the criticism part though.
If Green Goblin in this film that's fighting the Spider A Peter Parker, was on a glider and throwing pumpkin bombs and was resembling the Willem Dafoe Sam Raimi version, but was not the same version and not voiced by Willem Dafoe, like all that. Even though it's like, to me, that would be problematic on my end of saying, like, does this film connect? Because there's not exactly any connection to any previous things in this film. I'm a little spoiled with something that they've done in Across the Spider. Actually, the trailer gave it away in Across that it is connected in forms of the multiverse in MCU, at least connected. But then, as we know, because of No Way Home, Raimiverse, and The Amazing Spider-Man are both connected through that. So those are all in a web. So to me, it's being the villain. Mainly the villain, because this Peter Parker we see resembles things that the Tobey Maguire does, but it's not him because it's showing the world of his introduction is not the same universe. So they're parallel but not equal.
Yes.
But when it comes to villains, I think when a villain is introduced or a villain is given, they're always established as their own and stand alone and different. I mean, it's kind of throwaway. They have Scorpion in this film, and this Scorpion is cyborg, mechanical, and the only other Scorpion we have seen is in an end credit scene in the MCU, I think of Homecoming, where it's just some guy with a tattoo, but it's still Scorpion. Like, even those are, like, for how small both roles are alternately different. And I mean, my question to it is that a law that has to be, or is that just an established choice since the first Raimi Spider-Man that came out?
I don't understand how this is a criticism of the film, though.
I'm completely lost. Is this just for Spider-Man or Marvel movies in general?
Just Spider-Man.
Did that clarify things for you, Crimson?
Okay. I see it as a plus because every villain in this film lines up as its own villain and not connected to anything else as a reused. There's no reused villains. I'll say that.
Okay, so it's not a criticism.
Well, they are reused because it's still a Green Goblin. It's not a new character. It's just a different version of a character.
Yes. A different alternate version so far off base that it does not connect to the one that is known.
Okay. So this is
Same
not a
with
criticism.
Doc
So
Ock,
this is
same
not
with-
so this is not a criticism. This is a praise, in that their villains are different interpretation enough for you to disconnect it from the Raimi-verse, essentially.
Yes, or any verse out there that they do. I mean, Kingpin. This is not MCU Kingpin. This is his own stand-alone Kingpin.
Okay. Whew. All right. I think I got it.
All right,
Yeah,
Crimson. Being that you're the drawer here, an artiste, how do you feel that the shadowing of the film was used with stippling and cross-hatching?
It works. I mean, I don't think anyone could say this isn't visually stunning. I would love to hear arguments to the contrary. I don't know what someone could say that would point out that this is poorly animated or realized in the art style that they've formulated. I think out of the whole film, I only caught one animation error.
Yeah.
Not that I was like looking out for them, but
I
There was one
was
that
looking
stood
out
out.
for them this time. I think I only caught two.
do you know what they are? Top of your head right now?
I know one is where he's in. He's being chased by the security guard at Visions Academy, and he runs into his office. And as he's holding the door, and he gets knocked over. He just appears with his head over his shirt, essentially, or his shirt over his head, and stuff like that. So it was kind of a quick teleportation thing, almost like we wasn't sure where things happened in space for him to get to that point.
Okay.
That was the only animation error. One of the few animations error. I don't remember the second one. I'd have to look through my notes and give it a thorough examination for that.
And now that I'm looking at my notes, I guess I found two. I forgot about the first one. First one I caught was when Miles and his dad were driving to the school in the police cruiser. The rear view mirror shows a car behind them, And then when we cut back looking at Miles, there is no car behind them. Also in the mirror, it does not show the bars in the cruiser either. You could say, well, it's like a blurred mirror, but once they're parked at the school and you look at the rearview mirror, then you can see the bars. So that was just an inconsistency. They were not consistent with that mirror. And then the other one, which I just found amusing, when Prowler and Miles are on the roof right before Prowler gets shot by Kingpin, and he takes his mask off, his head is so much longer than the Prowler's mask size. It's hilarious. If you watch it in slow motion, his face just keeps stretching out because it's longer than the mask. It's like a magic trick.
That's kind of funny, actually.
I did notice that. That is true.
That's funny.
But those were the two I caught.
I don't know if I caught any animation errors. I just caught things that didn't quite make sense. For example, like when Miles is talking about the goober with Peter B. Parker, and they're just, on the walls outside in the alley talking to each other. Does the stickiness of Spider-Man go through socks and shoes?
Yeah, I wrote that down later. That's more like a universe thing than an animation, I think.
It kind of
because you could argue that with any Spider-Man suit.
Yeah.
Like, how's he sticking to walls with the suit covering his whole body?
I'm like, if the suit and the gloves work, because that's, Spider-Man, or bare hands and bare feet are fine. But articles of clothing that aren't made for Spider-Man, that's the part I was questioning on.
Yeah, the thing that was most egregious was his tennis shoes. When he does his whole swinging towards the end through the city on his way to the Collider, he's doing we got the whole song, the slow-mo jump, all that, and just his general swing through the city. He runs alongside a skyscraper. He does not have a web holding him anywhere. He's just running along the side of a building with his tennis shoes on, and he's somehow still sticking to the wall.
Does that go into a question of physics with a word that's too big for me to understand how to pronounce? Transcendental force.
Transvestical.
Is that what I'm trying to say?
Centrifugal.
Centrifugal. Is that what I'm trying?
I don't know.
I would agree if they showed him swinging in this example I gave. That's why I pointed out he was not holding a web, because you could argue if he swung, the momentum pushing him into the wall would allow him that stance. But he wasn't holding on to anything. He was literally just running along the building in tennis shoes. So,
yeah, the reason I don't really think about that, but because if it's a problem, then I have to apply it to virtually every Spider-Man. Because Gwen is running around her dancing shoes. Then we have, I'm pretty sure Noir has boots on. And then obviously your Crimson already brought up the fact that every Spider-Man's wearing a suit. So I don't really think about that, because then it kind of breaks for every character, at least somehow. But I'm happy to apply it as a criticism so long as we apply it to everybody.
Yeah, the only way I could think is kind of like the Sam Raimi one where you see like the hairs sticking out of his hands. You could figure it's going through his suit in that version. But in this, I don't think it could go through shoes. The shoes is what I'm like. On the suit, I'm sure you could work around like whatever hairs, if they go with that in this universe, stick through.
See, even in the
but the shoes wouldn't work.
So the issue, even in the Sam Raimi version, then he would have a very difficult time getting the suit off.
Well, can he retract them? In this version with Miles, it is self-control whether or not to stick. I would imagine he can control them in Sam Raimi, or else he'd just be sticking to everything.
Well, yeah, that's the general rule you have to apply.
Daggers in and out.
They got to be retractable, I think. If we're going with the hairs in this version, which make the most sense to me.
I think that would make more sense that he can, or that the Toby version can, because he can, the beginning of the film, he's practicing his webbing. He's not just like spewing webs everywhere of like an open pore, on his wrist. So I think he can get under control of retracting and when he wants. Especially, I mean, if it's even, it kind of goes into Spider-Man 2 of when he's, mentally depressed and losing his powers. He can't climb or do anything like that. So wouldn't that be retracted if they're not just present?
Yeah. And then the Sam Raimi ones, he doesn't wear shoes. It's just a onesie.
Yeah, like that's what helps the Sam Raimi version.
Goes into sticking? Is what you're saying?
Assuming it goes through suits, which we're going purely off the Sam Raimi one here, then yes, I think having the onesie can work with feet and hands. And this, with characters having shoes, like Ryder pointed out, Noir's got boots, Gwen's got shoes. Everyone seems to have shoes. I don't remember if Porker does, but I think the shoes are a problem.
I don't think Porker does.
Okay,
I
well,
can't really count Penny because she's in a robot whenever she's climbing.
Yeah,
but she's also wearing boots. But not that she's sticking to walls or anything. Because
I think that goes into a slight difference of outfits made for Spider-Man, like designed for the suit to work, because it could be designed to be stick, to do that, versus just clothing that are just anywhere. Like, Peter B. Parker is just wearing 2 different kinds of shoes, and Miles in his sneakers. Those weren't designed for Spider-Man's usage. So the fact that those stick is, or a pair of socks.
Like I said, Peter B. Parker's walking up walls with those 2 different shoes, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, he is okay. I didn't recall. Yeah, I think objectively this is a shoe problem. I think they went with a visual design and didn't think about
the visual
how
design,
they're sticking.
The visual design looks really cool aesthetically, but yeah, I guess it would be an objective problem.
And it only happens a couple times though, which is good.
Yeah, they keep it to a minimum, and like I said, it's mostly there as an aesthetic choice.
And it's 2 characters only.
Well,
no.
Ryder said Gwen and Noir have shoes.
Well, I'm saying Noir, those shoes are Peter made for Spider-Man costumes.
Well, Noir is from the 30s. I don't think he has these super magic shoes or super tech advanced shoes that allow him to stick to walls. I don't think that's the case.
And
Gwen, I'm sure. I guess you could argue that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the thing for Gwen's actually shoes, or are they to look like ballerina slippers as a onesie piece? Like, do they actually have depth to them to be shoes?
I didn't look at her feet. I'm just going off what the writer said. So.
They are essentially shoes.
Okay.
There is a screenshot that we'll get to eventually in the slideshow that does show that, but so.
Okay. I guess I'll popcorn if we're done with the shoe conversation.
Okay.
To a slight objective thing, at the beginning of Peter Parker, blonde,
Chris Pine.
Yeah, going through fighting, it shows him fighting Doc Ock, Goblin, like his versions of villains. Showing that he fights Doc Ock in this universe, would it not be covered? I mean, a big question to me is like, is there any CCTVs in this film? But would it not be covered, being that the media covered his death of Spider-Man, to know the identity, or because she just wears goggles, of Doc Ock? So the fact that they're showing, videos in school about her, would it not be known that she's a villain?
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
It would make sense that Peter B. Parker doesn't recognize her because it's not his universe. And Miles just kind of goes, "Oh, that's the lady I know from a video in class." But
I guess you'd have to do
you'd have to show homework
Clark
for that
Kent. Like Clark Kent rules, the glasses are enough.
It's more than that too. She also does her hair differently. She puts her goggles up. There's enough to work around that. I mean, she does more than Clark Kent does, because Clark Kent doesn't do anything other than the glasses. But I don't think it's a problem, because then it's just going to get into
Okay, only thing I could really think of was that the Chris Pine Parker doesn't say he's a photographer, so he's not covering Spider-Man photos and fights and everything for the Daily Bugle or any news outlet for that matter. But it just kind of went into that the day Spider-Man died, it was covered by the news, so they are like keeping track. But
You're saying that there
I'm just
was
saying
footage
there
of
should be
her,
like
or
there
would be
should be,
footage?
unless every time they fight is in private and no one knows Doc Ock exists in this universe.
Well, which part are you referencing that they would know she's Doc Ock if there was footage? What are you
The
talking
beginning introduction of Peter saying like, "I'm the one and only Spider-Man." He's fighting Doc Ock.
That's
in
for us,
the
by the
quick
way.
moment.
Like that's not live footage.
about? Well,
No,
that's
it's
what
not
he's saying
live
there
footage.
should be.
I'm saying
Where's it
that's
at? Where's the
that's
fight? I don't remember it.
the fight with what?
Doc Ock.
You're saying the fight he had with Doc Ock would presumably be recorded on CCTV or something.
Well, it goes into a bunch of variables. If the one fight that is shown of him being, pushed against a wall with Doc Ock, if that was the one and only time they've interacted, and there was no cameras present, then she's secret. If every time they fight, it's in secret and there's no coverage, and it's secret. If she is known and no one cares, if her identity by the goggles and the hair pulled up is enough to distract, or to be different enough to look the Clark Kent route that people don't recognize her, those things to it.
I guess we don't know how many times. When you say Chris Pine, the one's the blonde one. We don't know how many times Chris Pine fought her, so I wanted to accept it just being once.
Okay.
I actually have something about the Chris Pine Parker. Originally, I read this somewhere again on the internet, so potential factoid. The writers wanted Toby to voice that first Spider-Man character that we are introduced to, or Peter Parker A. Eventually, they didn't do that, and honestly, I think the movie benefits with them not having done that. While I would have enjoyed, it being Toby, I prefer it being a different universe. So, not as closely tied anyway. It'd be a different universe anyway, but I prefer not being as closely tied.
I like that it's not, because I think the similarities that they showed of doing the
it would have been too much.
Throwing the car and the the dancing of the Bully Maguire kind of thing, like it would be too connected at that point. And especially for children, I think it might be a little hard for them to understand the distinguish that they're not the same if they got closer and closer.
Yeah, I will. Unless you have any comments on that, Crimson, I will pick all popcorn to something else.
No, I agree with you guys. It would be cool, but I prefer him being distant.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna popcorn to the conversation that Miles and his dad have in the car, the patrol car. This script does a lot to kind of show the divide between them without it being overbearing. Like there's clearly a familial love there, even right up to when you gotta say I love you back, that sort of thing. It was it's very efficient in script writing. It very clearly shows the divide that they have, but it also still shows that they they love and care about each other. And it's like I said, it's very quick because it sets up their relationship pretty much for the rest of the film. So mostly praised about it. I don't think I have any.
Well, they also bring up Aaron in that, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Miles looks up to Aaron, and you can tell from the father's face he's not a big fan of Aaron. They lay down some stuff here.
They're bringing down some strain too in that. Yeah, and they talk about the latte as stuff as well. Like
foam party.
It's one of those things where they're doing multiple things within this conversation. It's doing a lot, so it's very good script writing. Very efficient. And his dad isn't the kind of cop to run red lights. Bit of a stickler.
True. Helps play on his character.
Yeah.
I'll point out a little detail, just a little popcorn. When Miles gets his test score back of 0 out of 100, you can clearly tell it's not our universe because the date is December 2nd, 2018.
December.
That's true, but it also could just be Miles, trying to get kicked out still.
I think that's That's Miles playing dumb again. I mean,
Yeah, like I said, it works either way, right? It could be a severance to another universe, or it's just Miles still trying to play dumb so he can get kicked out and go back to the school he wants.
I suppose so. I mean, the zero clearly shows that he attempted legitimately to get zero.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and she pointed out the statistics as well.
Yeah, which is nice.
Is that real statistics?
That is a real statistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're blind and just did it, would you hit 50%?
Average, yes. So not necessarily you would
Okay.
hit it, but like if you did a collective room of 200, it would probably average out to 50% or very near it.
Okay, that I believe. Because I think the teacher was just saying the one blind tester would be 50%. And I'm like, I don't think that's right.
No, statistically, that is the average you would get.
Okay.
Let's see. Then we have some more overbearing music as Miles is bouncing in between classes, and we get our introduction to what I like is the Great Expectations book, which is it's the theme of the film. But it's
Theme, like pirates?
Like pirates.
God, whew, that's episode 0 callback. But it does a very good job of showing it like his day-to-day life and how he's I think he's purposely trying to be late to classes because it ties into him, because we know he's a smart kid, but it also ties into him not wanting to be there, so he's purposely being late to classes and stuff like that.
Slightly
I'd
rebelling.
agree, but it looked like he was trying. It doesn't look like he wasn't trying to get to class.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of I see it read as both ways. I think that could be an addition to him being, wanting to get kicked out, or it could be just he was trying. It could be read either way for me, and I suppose in that sense, because in either way, I guess to me it works.
I mean, the best way to get kicked out of the school would just not to show up, which he could have done.
Yeah, well, if he didn't show up, that's
ditched
more.
And went to Aaron the whole time he was there.
Yeah, that's a level of like you're gonna get in trouble, more trouble from your parents if you just ditched than if you are late to class
think Aaron
by a
would
few
have
minutes.
eventually told Miles not to do such a thing.
Yeah, because even Aaron cares about Miles to quite a sharp degree. I do. I heard someone take a breath.
No, I was gonna popcorn to somewhere of just a question of if it affects anyone's objective of a creative choice or not. The intersection of the Visions Bridge by the school is reused, I think 4 or 5 times in the film, but at different times of day, but the same shot.
Why would that factor into my objective?
If it's seen as because it's not reusing a clip, but it's reusing a shot that's already done of just being in the sense of animation. It's just reusing an art piece that's already made.
Okay, example of this in live action. We see the outside of the diner in Seinfeld all the time. It's just establishing where we are.
That's what I was going to say. It just helps the audience establish location quick.
Okay.
So, no, it wouldn't really affect anything for me.
Nope, doesn't affect anything for me either.
Does it affect it for you, Springs?
I thought it was a creative choice of good, that it was a use of like a time lapse, but not in a traditional sense of a time lapse where
we just see it at different
you just
times of
mostly
day.
see traffic and the time changing in the background, but you just see when it's used of the same shot of different points of day throughout the film.
That's fair. I guess still at the school. Miles making a joke about Einstein time being relative and telling everyone that they might have been there early. I find it funny, doubly so, that Gwen is the one that laughs because she is there early. It's like a week early, right, or a couple days early.
She said she arrived a week early.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how she got enrolled though.
I don't know
because enrollment would be longer than a week. So I don't know how she got there. I don't know how she wasn't glitching because Peter B. Parker was glitching hours getting into this world.
Do you think
So-
it depends on how many spider people are around at present in the universe?
No. We don't know
There's no
we don't know
rule.
when the other spider people get here either. They could have been here weeks before Gwen.
All we know
Well,
about the other spider people
that's-
is they get here at the same time. Like all
they all arrived when the collider went off, which is probably a prior collider than the one shown, because
it got
Gwen's
destroyed.
story is the same with Peter B. Parker, and I guess every
Different
other.
collider? Huh?
No, I'm not saying different colliders. I'm saying a test would have gone off prior to all of them arriving because of the collider versus the one and done that occurred that we've seen. That's why Gwen
I
was
think
there
that would make it
earlier.
worse then. Because
How would that make it worse?
well, we see through it was Olivia, right? The Doc Ock.
yeah. Her friends
that
call her
Olivia
Liv.
is saying that it's cell degradation or something like that. They're falling apart cellularly. So if they were here longer, they would have they'd have way worse issues than what we see with Peter B. Parker.
Well, then that's a big problem then, because Gwen's
That's what I'm
presence.
saying.
Yes.
Okay.
It is a bit of a problem.
She's been here a week and she hasn't glitched out up to this point
It's
without
not
being seen.
as
Anyways,
bad
Okay,
as.
well, that would be for every character.
Yeah, that's that. Yes.
Okay.
that's why I'm pointing this out. It's a
How
problem.
could she be a week earlier before everyone else? I thought.
No,
that was
I didn't have a
what you were
problem
saying.
with that. No.
Because that's not true. I mean, they were all at the same time, but the collider of them getting there is prior to what Miles saw when Chris Pine Parker died.
Was that confirmed?
It
that
kind of
True.
the colliders
It has to
different.
be
Well,
because the scene talking with Gwen in the school day is before that collider went off.
No, she says she got sent back a week from that when it went
no. We
off.
see the time transition when she's being sent back. Like we see her
Yeah.
go back in time. Like when she's spinning around a light pole, the world is time lapsed around her.
There's an element of time travel going on here,
But only occurs to Gwen.
Yes.
or the other spiders. Like I said, we don't really
Yeah.
know when they got here.
Gwen is the only one that's confirmed.
So my thing with them being here earlier, I don't have a problem with that. My problem is just that
They're not.
she would be glitching at school. Because with
Yeah.
how frequently Peter B. Parker's been glitching, she certainly would at school.
Yeah, they're only, and there's not really any evidence for this in the script. The only thing that I could potentially see that might work is the more they do extraneous activities, the more they glitch. Because the other spiders do a pretty good job of keeping low, so they're not glitching actively. While we're with Peter B, through quite a lot, and then he starts glitching out because of everything that he does or goes through.
Well, it had to do with their cells. It had nothing to do with their activities. Because he glitched after getting, I guess, kidnapped by Miles. He didn't really do anything crazy outside shooting two webs. The one that stuck to Miles and the one that got stuck to the train.
Yeah,
That's
but
all he did.
He's getting the fuck beat out of him, though. That's the point. That's what I'm implying. Because that's still extraneous, getting hit by a bunch of cars and stuff like that, and your face dragged through concrete. But that's something for another day. Like I said, it's
Sure.
sort of
that's
works
extraneous, but I don't think that's tied to the cells.
No, I don't think it is either. But I'm saying that's a route they could have taken potentially, as the extraneous being part of making the degradation worse.
Sure, that's a route they could have done to explain it.
But they don't. So just pointing it out.
So yeah, I have a problem with her being how'd she enroll, and then her not glitching at school.
Okay.
Guess I'll jump somewhere when Miles goes to the lair to start setting up his new suit. Pretty much, we get a couple different angles of him looking at the suit in the showcase. We get one where it's kind of at eye level with him, showing his height compared to it. And then we get a different shot of his face, like, over the mask, like kind of creative shot like that. But that angle makes no sense at all.
Oh yeah, 100% for the visual awesomeness.
Yeah, but it makes zero sense. Does not work. But the suit wouldn't fit him. Putting that out there a lot now.
What do you mean that wouldn't work?
The suit. What, are you talking about the angle or the suit?
The angle. The angle. The suit. Yeah, the suit's too big, but the angle makes sense.
No, because he would be floating in the air to get that angle.
No. They're two different angles, and there's a camera trick. The first one is lined up so that Miles' reflection is lower than the suit. The second one, the camera would have been higher up to angle downward onto the reflection to match up with Miles where he was standing.
Oh, I know. I'm not stupid. I know that's a different angle. I'm saying the angle doesn't work with where he's standing. Either he would have to be floating, or the showcase holding the suit would have to be tilted at a different angle than it was represented being vertical. To get that angle with that you're talking about. Because we got the angle is Miles looking upwards.
Yeah,
right?
In the first one. Second one he's looking.
Second one he's looking up. Yeah, he's looking up on the second one.
He's looking up in both.
I mean, that's completely fine. The first one, totally fine.
Yeah, the first one's totally fine. The second one, I'm saying, is it just physically doesn't work. They did it for the coolness of the shot.
The camera was raised higher above his head. The angle of reflection would have actually been lower. So it would have had to been like an over-the-shoulder shot with a lighting aspect to get the reflection to match, because the outfit's above. I guess the only thing it's hard to tell with animation, unless a lens technique was different on the camera to do a depth or widen perspective, kind of like a fisheye lens, would have matched it. But you can't tell because it's a cartoon.
I mean, you can mimic fisheye lenses. I mean, they do that when he says the puberty thing, waking up in the morning.
That's true.
The sides of the showcase aren't warped. So they're straight, so it's not a fisheye view.
No, that was for example of a lens change. I'm not saying that the second shot is a fisheye lens.
Okay.
I think it's still feasible that we're not looking at.
Not with the angle they have. The showcase would have had to change angles.
Well, I still agree. I agree with you about the size of the outfit. It's too big.
Yeah. And
you don't see cuts in the outfit, like you didn't cut the legs so his shoes were in, kind of thing, to make pants or something. There's no cuts, unless Aunt May helped him, shrink it in the wash or something.
That's funny. I want that as deleted scenes.
That would be funny. How do you guys feel about him taking the time to change the outfit opposed to just putting it on and helping his friends?
The same way I feel about them taking a bus.
I was going to bring that up as well later. But we're talking about Miles here.
I feel the same between both. I'm like, that both of you groups are rushing. Why aren't you rushing? I mean, visual cue, fucking awesome. But,
I think
time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence, but I think intact to a teenager's mindset of motivation, that it fits that he wants it to be him and not Peter.
The universe is in threat. His family is in danger.
And he took time.
The benefit of this, and this is not a defense, but the benefit of this, at least, is fucking spray paint. Because, man, you can get a lot done quickly in spray paint.
That's true.
If it wasn't spray paint, I would have more of an issue. And I still do have an issue, because you're right, Crimson. I'm annoyed at the fact that they all took their fucking time. The spray paint
bus
helps.
Thing's a double problem, because one, they took the bus. They took the bus. And two, it took them all freaking day. They left him in his room during the day. And
they left him at sundown.
Nighttime.
They left him at sundown. The sun is setting in that scene.
So about hour and a half.
Yeah.
At minimum.
Yeah. They didn't even explain why they took the bus.
I agree.
It just happened.
And see, the thing is, that is something they could explain, because Peter B. Parker earlier in the film says, "I'm not gonna swing, after a big hearty burger meal." Like there is definitely an avenue of like Peter B. wanting to just walk, and he just makes them all go with him. That could work, but they don't give us anything.
I mean, I'm I would disagree with that because that was early Peter. He's different at this point. I don't think he would be like, let's take the bus because I'm fat. Even though he's been losing weight through the whole film. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I do. Yeah, I did notice. He's working out. He's doing a lot of work.
I guess.
Oh, he's also got the superhero metabolism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I am somewhat with. I mean, that would just go into showing that, Peter B in his world was eating all the time then.
Yeah.
To maintain that weight. But I guess I'm in agreement with Crimson here on. I've lost my train of thought of what I was agreeing with you with.
We were talking about the heroes taking the bus.
That Peter changed from the beginning, or the bus taken. Mostly what we were talking about, or the Miles outfit.
The Miles taking too long.
No, I said my thing on the Miles outfit. That was fine to me. The bus didn't make sense. I forget.
Okay.
I'll take that you agreed with me.
There's too many thoughts. There's too many things I'm looking at, and yeah.
I wrote down in my notes explanations they could have used for them taking the bus. Like, one of the things they could do is they could have just taken their time to try and figure out and plan how they're going to break in. But again, because that's something they could have talked.
It's just that easy.
Yeah. But I mean, like, they could have come up with a very elaborate plan, and that could have just been that supplanting their whole plan, because it would have been easier just to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there is a level of, like, they decided to take a bus because they wanted to talk things over while making their way to the destination, but they don't. So it's just so to us as the audience, it just looks like they just waited for things to get more dire.
No reason. Yeah. Yeah, I can't play devil's advocate for it.
Like I said, even my quote-unquote playing devil's advocate are just like, some of these things will help the script, but I don't think any of them are perfect fixes. Yeah, timing's a bit off, but the cool thing is, or probably the cool thing is, the group definitely told Aunt May that Miles was going to show up at some point, because otherwise Aunt May being ready doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah, that was something I wrote down as a discussion point. I don't think the group told her. I think they said they were going to tie him up, and she figured he'd break out and come here.
Yeah,
I don't think the group expected him to break out, because they would have just done a better job of tying him up.
Well, if they expected him to break out, they would have taken him with them.
And
that was the point of the test.
I don't think they tied him up for a test. I think they genuinely thought he wasn't ready.
At that point, when they tied him up, that was because they thought he wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But before that was the test. Like, Peter B was directly testing him.
Yeah. But shock me. Do it. Do it.
Do it now.
Take it from me.
I'll cut to a popcorn here that I think is a problem. When Miles is being chased by Prowler and goes through the tunnel.
Oh yeah, he edgewalks, definitely.
Edgewalks?
Meaning that he could have easily caught up to Miles while Miles was stuck to the ceiling.
Oh, yes, that's not my problem with it.
Oh, okay.
My problem is he jumps to a ceiling to escape a train, and then heads down the area to the exit where a train is coming at him. That would imply that the first train vanished, or the trains would have collided with one another because they were going opposite directions on the same track.
Were they going opposite directions?
Yeah, I don't think they were opposite.
Yeah, they were going the same directions. Yeah.
One train's leaving when he's on the ceiling and Prowler's against the wall, and then he's heading down that direction, and a train's coming at him.
Yeah, but they're going the same direction in the tunnel.
Are they
the first one left the station going towards them,
and the second
one is going towards them.
Well, okay, now I have to find it, because I don't think it was coming at him first. The first train wasn't coming at him.
Yeah, it was. It had the lights go. It was a dark tunnel, and then they lit up in front of him, and he jumped up. Which was a complaint I had, was that the lights came out of nowhere.
Just happened.
It was a pitch black tunnel, and then it poof train.
The benefit, it's not enough. The benefit is that the train just is going fast, but it's not enough. The light would have just hit him because light travels faster than trains. Fun fact.
Yeah. So that was my complaint with the scene, was that the lights came out of nowhere. The train in large came out of nowhere. But yeah, they were going the right direction. My problem is how the heck after Miles loses Prowler, he gets Prowler finds him later. I think that's the second chase scene.
What? We're
popcorning, and I'm trying to find my spot in my notes right now.
You mean from the...
I was mistaken.
It's all right. We'll do that.
We all do that. It's okay.
Darn it. I don't know where this is in my notes. Go to something else. I'll find...
Okay, how come Miles' dad, being a cop, so showing that the PDNY are present, don't try to triangulate or find a disturbance of a power outage or go towards an explosion that occurred or anything to do with the collider until much later when Davis is the only person present, the only cop around.
All right. The first collider explodes underground. So
it was an earthquake, and we get all of the surface changing because of the multiverse stuff.
Parts of the surface changing, yes.
Yeah.
But would the power outage not help show a triangulation of the origin point?
Considering there was a citywide power outage, no.
A seismograph would.
A seismograph would.
They probably would have enough in the city to do that. So presumably it is indeed trackable. So I guess that's a fair point. They could figure out it originated at the Kingpin's building.
Trying to think the distance of the. Well, we don't exactly know where the trains come out of the subway, but the subway to graffiti spot to the collider, to I guess the Fisk building.
Yeah, we don't. We know it's fairly close, but we don't know the exacts of it.
Okay, and the collider isn't underneath the lab, right? Those are two separate places.
Two separate.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
The collider's under the skyscraper, not the
good.
labs in the forest.
Good. That's better.
So in the lair, when we first go Spider-Man's lair, we get him. He's got his little web with lines leading up to Kingpin's organization and all that. And I think he would know who Prowler's identity is. Doing all this studying of Kingpin, I think he would have tracked Prowler and figured out his identity, but they didn't do that because then it wouldn't be a surprise for Miles.
I guess that's an audience play then.
They dumbed down Peter Parker just for the surprise. For both Miles and the audience.
We only know that he's been investigating a week at the start of it. So the reason we only know he's been investigating a week at the start of the story is because we have that in a news broadcast.
And the spider layers before they go to the lab, right?
The what?
After.
It's after? Okay, never mind then.
What? Well, why do you say it's a week-long investigation?
Because they say that in a news broadcast. They basically say that, hey, the earthquake's been happening. Essentially what they say is the earthquakes have been happening for a week. Spider-Man's starting to investigate them. He's on the case. That's the message he's given them or whatever.
Well, then that's the public message. It could be, unless he lies.
Well, why would he investigate before the earthquakes? The earthquakes would draw his attention.
Kingpin's a bad guy, but sure.
There could be shipment raids. There could be, fishy organization things going on to build the collider before a first test.
That's all assuming stuff. So we'll go with the weak thing. I still think he would have figured out Prowler's identity. Because it would be an easy track job for Peter Parker after being Spider-Man for 10 years just to follow Prowler.
Yeah.
Because he knew he existed. It was on the wall. So it's not like it was a surprise guest at the collider.
Oh, he
Yeah.
called him by name when they interacted at the
Plus
collider.
that.
Yeah. Prowler and Busy
What
Man.
I think of weird with Prowler is he's pretty secretive, but he has a voice modification changer in his mask that he uses to speak, but then he removes his mask when on phone with Kingpin in his apartment when Miles is like, invisible, and speaks in his normal voice to Kingpin, so Kingpin knows what he sounds like.
Well, Kingpin knows who he is, presumably.
He hired him.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
We also get from Aaron the reason why he knows this spray paint area is I had an engineering job down here. Just likely the collider
Yeah.
has worked with Kingpin. So
And presumably they've worked
I wouldn't
together.
be too shocked if Kingpin knew
Yeah.
Aaron's identity.
Okay. I guess it's kind of throughout the film. Something I have a problem with is just how easy everyone just takes their mask out willy-nilly or off.
That's
Peter
the
takes his mask off
MCU
anywhere.
problem.
Prowler just takes his mask off on top of a building. I mean,
Proud to take it. Oh yeah, Prowler's trying to talk
on
to
the
Miles.
reveal.
Yeah, he's talking to
I
Miles.
don't have a
That's
problem
fine.
with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
true, but then it's a connection to Miles, and then for the audience realization, even though the audience knows. But it's also in a public neighborhood, and if he didn't get shot and killed, that could have been. I mean,
Dude is worried about
And then
his nephew first. Okay.
true. I'm just saying it just seems like there's no cameras anywhere.
I don't.
I mean, it wasn't a residential area, so I'm not too worried on that. If it was in the city, I'd have a bigger problem with that scene. My problem with that scene is what the heck Prowler was even doing. Like, he puts Miles' mask on, and then he just stands there, puts his arms out, and then gets shot. He could have totally played this off because he knew Kingpin was there watching him. I don't think he expected him to get shot, but he could have pushed Miles, pretended to grab it, so Kingpin could at least see that he would get the drive, even though he wouldn't in this scenario. He could have played it off.
No.
Well, I also
you disagree.
in way
Well,
of timing.
it's going to be a rehash of our argument that people can be blinded by their emotions and not do logical things in the heat of the moment. He's in shock right now, so yeah, I don't think he's capable of doing all of that. You are correct; that would be smart things to do, but he is not there yet. He doesn't have the time to get there.
No, I mean, if Miles never took off his mask, he would have just killed his nephew.
Yeah, but he was pretty level-headed once he put his Miles' mask back on and just backed up and put his arms out. That wasn't like oh my god, I'm in shock, I don't know what to do.
That's him trying to calm his nephew.
Pretty level.
That's him trying to calm his nephew. His first priority,
because
his nephew, he was just about to kill him, right? So he's trying to calm his nephew down, like, okay, I'm not going to hurt you. And then he gets shot.
Yeah. But the timing of the shot would have, to line up to Kingpin, as soon as Kingpin made the phone call, he got out of the limo and aimed the gun.
Yeah, I wrote that down as well. That is another one of my,
so
that was one of my quote-unquote animation errors. Teleported in space. Don't like it. But cool visual. Cool thing to happen. Still, moved in space.
Might as well bring it up here. It's kind of relevant. I hate Kingpin's design. It serves no practical purpose. How does he enter any building? How does he get in a car?
I
get he's a big guy in the comics. They're just building it up to build like the comic persona and stuff. But even in the comics, he wasn't like this.
Well, let me answer your question for you, Crimson. His animation is inconsistent throughout the film. I have seen the movie enough to know that his size changes throughout the movie.
Yeah, so they went for style, and I don't think they needed to make him that cartoonishly large to show his presence.
How do you even just feel of Kingpin being the villain of this film?
It works.
It could have been somebody else because he doesn't really do many Kingpin things. But like Ryder said, it works.
I don't have anything. I don't have any reason for him not to be the villain. He's serviceable enough.
I'd say it could kind of just be a waste of the Kingpin character, but he does his job here, and it's fine.
Okay, I
Since
find
you
it.
asked, what do you think?
No, I think he's fine. I think he's a little underused,
Yeah,
especially for just his story. It's just some character story to connect to a villainous form of using multiverse to work with their character to also consist with what's going on with Spider-Man and everything in the film. So it's a little underutilized. What I think is weird is that when they're doing the second test of the collider, they need a DNA match for his wife and child, which they use a hair sample. But would that mean that they need a DNA match every single time they run the collider?
well, if they want to grab someone from the collider. Obviously, they didn't get the DNA of the buildings and all the other stuff coming out.
No. A DNA to locate what they're searching for.
Yeah.
So every time, I mean, Kingpin would have a limited supply of DNA accessible to find them.
Is the DNA they're using to find them like destroyed every time they use it, or can they just reuse it?
Oh, I think it's destroyed with what they showed. They showed a hair off a comb into like a vial of some liquid that I think they just ran through to be tested into the collider.
We don't see it get destroyed, so I don't.
Okay,
I think they can reuse.
They can reuse it. I mean,
we don't see
in
it.
in how science works, I would just be able to take that thing out of the liquid, put it in a washing solution, and then put it back wherever I want. It's a little weird. It's on the comb every day if that's where they choose to store it, but.
Well, that went into my thought that it's a new DNA sample each time. Then again, this is at least second test.
Yeah, because he pointed out it's going to be very colorful, which implies he'd seen it before. We get whatever the spider is, because that's clearly somehow connected.
Oh, 42?
Glitchy. Yeah, 42.
Yeah, 42 is from a different universe, I'm pretty sure. At least that's my guess.
I like the little detail of when Miles attempts to swing and jump, he bashes into a sign and the numbers 42 are on the sidewalk.
I didn't see that.
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
Which then again also went into why can't Spider-Man test his jumps on land? Like just do lawn jumps to see if it works. Why does he have to always jump off a building? Like he wasn't jumping to test his webs. He was just jumping
visually stimulating for the audience.
I mean, the first thing he does is go from a tall building to a smaller one. So I think Miles would have worked his way there if he didn't trip on his fucking shoelace.
Oh, I think that was just height. I just mean to test how far you can jump. Why can't that be tested on land or on ground?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's for audience.
I mean, we're gonna apply this to every Spider-Man then, right?
Well, the Andrew one I can't recall. The Holland one, or Tom Holland, he already explains. He already has the power. He doesn't show an origin story, and Toby is doing it for webs.
Well, we see him running rooftops.
Yeah, but Toby jumps rooftops.
Yeah.
So. If we're applying this criticism to Miles, we can apply it to every Spider-Man. I'll agree to that. Otherwise, it's not an issue.
Oh yeah, the webs is after.
Yep.
Climbs the building, knows he has powers, and then jumps.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know why Toby couldn't have done that on the ground either.
I mean, I agree. A normal person wouldn't just go straight to building jump hopping.
So. To be fair,
I wouldn't mark down anything for me objectively, but I agree.
I agree. I would say Miles has it better because he's inspired specifically because he read a Spider-Man comic of what he was supposed to do next. But
that's another thing I have on, which I don't know if that's a universal multiverse similarity that they all share, because the words Miles speaks about having the powers are the same match to the comic.
Yeah, I mean, he read the comic. So.
Okay, so is the comic actually word for word of what Chris Pine's Spider-Man said when he got his powers?
I don't know. That's not. It could be a dramatized version of what he said. For all we know, it's a comic book within his universe that's based on his origin story.
So it's just a I find it cheesy in that regard. Then, if it's just
You
a
find
thing,
that cheesy?
I find it cheesy that Miles read a comic and then that morning re-said the exact same words from a comic he read previously.
No. That's not the order it happened in. He said all those words first, then he found the comic, and as he was
Yes.
yeah.
Well, he had already on
Which
the
is my
comic.
original thing of it's a universal thing that every Spider-Man that gets bit says those words. That
Just because two say it, I would not jump to say it's a universal.
All I have
I'm
to do
saying
is
because it's from the comic that's afterwards shown of him reading, that it matches up to what he's already
okay.
previously
Does
said.
Toby say it now that we know that these movies are connected?
No, I don't
Okay.
think Toby said it.
Okay then. Oh man.
I mean, I think the things he says are kind of normal things for people to say.
Yeah,
So,
it's
you know,
not.
It matches up to the same words.
It's not like Jiminy Cricket, I'm sticking to the wall. And then we look at the comic and it says Jiminy Cricket, I'm sticking to the wall. Then I'd say that's a bit weird. But saying please stick, I'm not too worried about that. They don't stand out as like unique things to say.
It stood out to me being word for word in a world that already has a comic of Spider-Man himself. So whether it's a writer's liberty to write in what the story and origin is, or if it's actual word for word of what Chris Pine Spider-Man said when he got his power.
It doesn't have to be word for word though. Like it's just his origin story. Like it could be a dramatized version of it. Just gonna shrug.
Yeah, because let's say in this universe, Stan Lee wrote the comic in this universe, presumably. I don't remember what the cover said, but it's probably a safe bet that Stan Lee wrote the book in this universe.
Some form of Stan Lee.
So, yeah, not the guy in the shop.
Lee Stan.
Yeah. So he could have just wrote up what he thought was Spider-Man's origins, or Spider-Man did an interview with him and he just wrote up what would be a good comic. Were those the words that Chris Pine said specifically? We don't know. And I don't think it really matters either.
I don't think it matters if he actually said it versus the liberty that could have been taken on the comic writing. What I find weird is Miles woke up, said those words, and then looked at the comics, and it's the same words he just said without ever looking at the comic prior.
Well, it's his roommate's comic, right? Because his roommate's the one that's reading the Spider-Man comics that we see constantly whenever he comes into the room.
Yes.
So he doesn't necessarily have to have read the comic before.
I'm not saying he has to.
I guess my thing, Frank, is the writing isn't unique, so I don't find much of an issue. Like the Jiminy Cricket thing, like I brought up, I think then it would be an issue because it's pretty unique. The things he says, I think a lot of normal people would say close to,
natural
if not.
reaction.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll jump to potential problem here. During the first collider with Chris Pine and the Goblin pushes him into it, which is where we get the whole multiverse stuff and the Spider-Man, presumably, from that. Goblin's foot is also in there. So where's all the Green Goblins?
They're in the next movie.
Think it's a problem that we don't get a bunch of Green Goblins too. Thoughts?
I'm gonna be honest, didn't see whether his foot was in there. I know he was pushing him in there, but
it is.
Yeah,
his toes are in there.
talons in there. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it falls onto a body mass situation. If it's a neural,
a strand of hair is enough.
Is it a neural link situation? Is it something to do with the brain? Is it
a strand of hair is enough?
A strand of hair is enough in the computer.
We just need DNA.
Well, did it calculate more DNA presence in Spider-Man than it did in the mass of Green Goblin? I don't know if the Spider-Man DNA overridden.
Well, yeah, because actually that's a good point. One. They don't get Kingpin's family. It's just
no, they got Spider-Man.
Yeah, because.
But they were showing up. The thing wasn't done.
Yeah, until Spider-Man clogged it. So it could be a mass thing. We don't know though.
See, what Kingpin should have learned is that by Goblin pushing Spider-Man into the collider, to get alternate forms of Spider-Man to come out, he should have dug up his child and wife to throw them into the beam to get alternate versions to pop out.
That would
They
probably
got cremated.
that would
Whoopsies.
probably work. That probably would make more sense. 50-50 on it. Crimson.
Okay.
I'm going with it's a problem.
A little smart thing I noticed is when Miles is in the crowd listening to the MJ give her speech, and he's speaking aloud, someone actually overhears him.
Yeah.
Kudos. Thank goodness. So many movies do it where they speak aloud and no one hears anything or cares, and this one guy actually hears and says something.
Yep. Not you specifically. I think it's a metaphor.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the more funny comedic moments that landed for me.
How do you feel about her speech as a whole? Right, I know you wrote it down.
I think it works.
Probably got thoughts on.
Let me see. I gotta go find it.
I guess while you're finding it, I can bring up all the in-universe posters and advertisements they have that aren't our own.
See, I only noticed the cola one.
The cola one's the main one.
Looking around.
Yeah.
I mean, they got FedEx is now Redex.
Oh, yeah, the truck.
Mr. Tomato Head. Seth Rogen is in a movie called Hold Your Horses. There's a poster from Dusk Till Shaun instead of Shaun of the Dead. Instead of Bridesmaids, it's Baby Showers. Nick Kroll and John Mulaney are in something called Hi Hello. And that was the first instance. There's another part in my notes where I wrote down more stuff.
Okay. Going into her speech, I don't really have much to say about it. I just wrote it down. Other than I just quite enjoyed it. But I had stuff going up to it where I was talking about how the news spread and is one of the better pop songs, I think, in the film. I'm Not Scared of the Dark. Is playing when that everyone's finding out. And a nice detail is that Miles' dad covers his mouth in shock when he's listening to the news as we pan out and follow Miles out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The other ones I spotted later in the film are Red Man Group, Snapchat is now Peekaboo, and a advertisement for Clone College 2.
Putting my notes. There was a third animation error I noticed.
Wonderful.
Which is kind of on a big scene, or at least the memorable one. The shoulder touch. The hair that gets stuck to his hand was on the back of his hand, which I think is weird, but even if you think that's fine, we jump to a different angle where it's kind of the front of them because I was over the shoulder of Gwen. We get to see them in the front, and now the hair's on the front of his hand instead of the back.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I catch that.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I like that it causes an actual handprint in her hair, which I don't think works. I mean, it's nice to show that it's a handprint, but the fact that it was off parts of her hair, wouldn't it just cut off that?
It works when she toggles into the ground and she presumably fell on her. Or fell over her.
Yeah, when she lays on the ground and kicks him.
Head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he'd have his whole hand on her head. Yeah.
Okay.
And then she shaves off the rest
Interesting that
of
no one thought anything of it. Like the nurse or whoever cut it. Like, why is it sticking? Weird.
Ryder, you got a place to popcorn?
Shoot. No, not at the moment.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. I'll go with something real quick. There was when Miles was looking up the address for Alchemax Labs. There's a phone number. I called it. It doesn't work.
Wow.
Wow, your phone didn't reach another universe? I'm not surprised.
Yeah. 202-105-5782. Doesn't work.
Darn.
Just in case.
That's funny, but
yeah, in our universe, it's not connected to anything.
All right, so sure we'll debate on this one. When they tie Miles up to the chair and then web his mouth shut, and then his dad shows up, does all that. One, good timing, but that's not my problem. Why would Peter bother with the mouth? His goal is just to keep him tied up.
Well, one, he could wake up.
They tie him up. Huh?
He has a roommate that he could shout and wake up.
Okay.
He could make a phone call.
And
well, his arms are tied.
Well, no, you have Siri.
Uses...
He can make a phone call.
He's got the laptop.
No, yeah, there's more. I think there's plenty of reasons to tie up his mouth.
I saw it more as a writer's device to get the whole scene with the dad than anything else.
No, I'm saying from Peter's perspective, he has more than enough reason to tie him up. Yes, it works in that sense. Yeah, it helps with the dad scene as well, but there's reason behind it for Peter B to do that. Because I mean, he could just shout for help too. Otherwise.
Well, yeah, but he could just bang on the door or just bump into his roommate. I mean, there's a lot he could do in his current stance anyways. He could have tied him to the ceiling. I mean, if you want to go that route.
Well,
I think they strictly just did the mouth
supposed to delay him
the father.
Even longer is what it's supposed to do. Because if he's saying help, that's going to attract more attention than a few bumps in the wall.
Or bumping in the roommate, waking him up.
Yeah, I mean, him bumping into the bed is not going to accomplish the same thing as saying "help, wake up."
I think if you wake up and you see your friend tied up on a chair, it would be just equivalent as him yelling, "Help!"
His roommate is on Miles's bed on top too. He's not on the He's not on the first floor. He's on the second one.
Okay, I mean, still just bump the post. I had a bunk bed. You could shake a bunk bed. I don't know. It's not the worst thing in the world. I just see it more as a device, which it's whatever, I suppose. The scene with the dad, though, I did like that a lot. It was pretty impactful.
In that regard, being that Miles was tied up in webbing, in a spider suit, on that chair, if his mouth wasn't covered, do you think he would have said anything to his dad?
If he did, his dad would just say, "Open the door, please," and then that would be something weird, I would imagine.
Did his dad ever try to open the door, or did he just knock?
He knocked.
I think he just knocked.
He just knocked because I think he knows the door was locked.
He knocked and saw the shadow?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not too sure if he would or not. He knows his dad's feeling towards Spider-Man, especially since Aaron just died, presumably from the new Spider-Man. So he probably wouldn't say anything because it would invite his dad to ask to open the door. I do like how one of the callbacks where the dad says, "I love you, but you don't have to say it back," which is kind of like the cruiser in the beginning.
Well, this film has a lot of callbacks.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of thoughtful echoes at the end.
I think the first one is just the mom. He's saying 1 minute to the mom, and then it cuts to the mom saying 1 more minute. I think that's the first back to back.
They do like their symmetry in this movie in terms of writing. All of it's effective. I just say they did use the tool a lot.
The shoelace came back a couple times.
The shoelace came back. The Einstein joke came back.
Touch.
The shoulder touch came back. The leap of faith came back. The
sweep the leg and grab.
Came back. They even Peter A's swinging up onto the machine originally, the collider originally, that came back in the form of Miles. When Peter and Gwen remark, "We didn't teach him that, right?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of callbacks in this movie. It is a tool they use a lot, but they're all pretty effective. So I just shrug at that.
I wasn't pointing it out as an issue. I just liked it.
Yeah. I'm not pointing it out as an issue either.
Yeah. Okay. This might be more subjective for me. Let's see what you guys feel on it. In the woods, when they're getting chased by Olivia, and Gwen ties him up and then stops her. I I know it was to show she's very capable, and it's a strong intro to this new Spider Person. But it felt like too much of an upstage. Like, she beat her so quickly, and Peter B just was running the whole time. He never actually tried stopping her, which seemed to be pretty darn easy for a experienced Spider Person to deal with.
I think what makes it an upstage to me for that is the fact that she stopped Miles and Peter.
That's also
Like, why would
a factor.
They were
rather than
falling.
just going-
I don't know why they would, not re-web or anything. But the reason she shot webs at them was to stop them from falling.
I feel like she's experienced enough to do it more gracefully, or
I mean,
kindly,
she's got to deal
rather
with
than make it look
Doc
like-
Ock first. I'm gonna
Well,
web
but
up my
it looks
teammate.
it makes it look like she put them in a trap.
I'm not
They
too
were all
worried about
tangled
that. I'm not too worried about that. She's got she's got
Her
larger things to worry
introduction
about.
was grand, but it felt too
I do agree.
upstagey.
I think her focus should have been on Doc Ock than on them.
Yeah, that's why I don't have an issue of her quote unquote trapping them. She's not doing it gracefully. She's just tying them up so they don't fall, and then goes to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
On the upstage thing, she's supposed to be the Spider-Man in her prime, when comparison to everybody else, like the most in her prime anyway, outside of Noir and because Penny's journey hasn't started yet, and it's not in the film, but I'll get there when we get there. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I can definitely see what you're saying, Crimson. I don't have an issue with it, though.
Okay.
At least I don't see an objective issue with it. So.
Oh. Do you think this pilot... What am I doing? This Peter would have tried to actually stop her at any point, or just keep running? I think he would have tried to at least slow her down.
Well, he's down a web shooter. They have the computer. I think his priority would just be to get away.
Which obviously isn't working. They're not making ground. And even though he's the fat Spider-Man, he's still a capable Spider-Man.
I'm not saying he's not incapable. That's not what I said.
I know. I'm just saying I think he would have actually done something to fight. So we got the element where he's trying to help teach him swing, which is all fine and dandy. I like that. But I think he would have done both. Especially since he wasn't too happy about being a teacher in the first place.
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah.
It's pretty much, yeah. It's... Sure, I don't... I'm trying to think of, like... I guess the potential... So in that issue that you're bringing up, I guess it would damage Peter B. Parker's character, is what you're trying to get at?
I suppose in this situation, I think he would try to stop her, or at least slow her down while they try to get away. Especially seeing how easy Gwen did it.
Is Miles skilled
seeing
enough
how
to
easy
get away,
it was, though? I think. Huh?
Is Miles skilled enough to get away on his own without Peter B's help?
I mean, even if he's just running, even if the swinging doesn't work, running is still making more progress. Because the entire swinging sequence, she was on him the whole time. They were never making any ground. They would have just kept going until she grabbed him. I mean, there were several times where she almost did. Like, hit both of them running up the tree. She just happened to miss, which, I mean, builds up to the energy of the scene. Fine with it. But it would have inevitably ended with her getting him or the computer, which she ended up getting the computer.
Well, in that case, yeah, I think if it had kept going, I think Peter B would have turned around to actually fight her. So
you think he'd be more reactive than proactive?
Well, he's entirely reactive for a fair bit of the film, so I would say yes. Because right now his goal is to escape and protect Miles, and it's easier to do that while they're running away. Because if he turns and fights, it's a little more difficult because then Miles is on his own. So I think eventually, if the scene continued, I do think he would have turned around to fight. The scene doesn't. Gwen shows up.
Yeah, I think still on the upstage thing. I don't think there's much more we can really talk about this scene. Other than the fact that I'm sure everyone knows where Spider-Man has a higher frame rate than Miles, or Peter has a higher frame rate than Miles, to show the skill level in swinging.
Mm-hmm. It works.
Throwing it out there.
It's a nice little animation tweak. It
Good
works,
detail.
but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sprinks, you got some popcorn? You've been fairly quiet. Unless you have more on the upstage thing.
No. I think balanced. There's a line said from Miles where he says, "Gotta say, you're an amazing man." That's
Gotta say, you're an amazing teacher, man.
Oh, teacher man. Amazing. That's
no, you're
simply
right.
using that for the use of the word. In my notes I wrote down, Miles, that's the wrong Peter. That's Peter 3.
And this is bad?
No, it's not bad. It's just the word amazing is thrown in. Yeah, it's a reference. It's not bad. I think it's interesting that Gwen's Peter was the lizard of her dimension.
Yeah.
Her universe.
Yeah, that is a thing. And I don't know much about the comics of the other characters, but I did do some background research because this movie did nothing else. This movie did get me interested in all the other Spider characters, more or less. And yeah, that is something that happened in her universe. And she's responsible for that. So,
well, if you looked it up, do you know the reason of why? I mean, was that Peter missing that arm or something? I mean,
no. Peter was actually her friend and trying to help her, and he ended up taking the serum to help her, and he went crazy. And she didn't realize it was him until she put him down.
Okay. I did list off here all the suits in the spider layer of the Spider Armor Mark 1 and Mark 2, the Insomniac Spider Suit, which I forget its name, but it has some kind of name to it, the Stealth Suit, the Electro-Proof Suit, so Electro is somewhere in this world, or somewhere in this universe, whether form, the Secret War Suit, which tells me that Daredevil and Wolverine and Nick Fury are somewhere in this world. The cape outfit that Miles touches on is not the zombie suit or the Doctor Strange cloak. It's actually a cape from a What If comic number 19. Then there's the Iron Spider armor as well. And I think that's all that I recognized.
Like Tony Stark Iron Spider? Is that a different thing in the comics?
MCU. Different one. The Iron Spider armor is red with big gold look to it.
Do you know what the origin of that is in the comics?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
Why do you? Did you?
No, I was wondering if it had any connection to any other superhero, because then that would imply stuff.
Iron Spider armor probably has a story to it, but I did not. I don't know that one.
Oh, funny note, we found out Miles doesn't have Comic-Con in his universe.
Well, doesn't have it or just doesn't know it?
Yeah, I mean more towards he just doesn't know what it is.
Because they have Spider-Man is present.
Okay. I just found it was a funny line to me either way.
Yeah, and his roommate reads comics. I feel
like there would be something of a Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I like how we're showing Kingpin's quote-unquote tragic backstory or motivation intercut with the clicking of a pen. There's a nice little...
I like how quick it is.
Yeah, it's very quick, very efficient, and, I like the sound effect, like I said, the clicking pen that goes with it.
All right. I looked it up. The Iron Spider is made by Tony Stark during the Civil War comic.
Oh.
So does that mean Tony Stark is in this universe?
I would say yeah. If he's the one to design and make it, then he's around somewhere.
Or they could just be references and he made them all.
That could also be true. They could all have been just out of the mind of Chris Pine Parker. Shoot, I had something here in my notes. When they're all on the ceiling, going around to the roommate's reading before he faints. The comic he's reading is Imagine That There Was More Than One Spider-Man.
That's definitely a reference.
Oh, it's a reference to What If, but yes. Also, I think earlier on, they also play, I think, a reference to What If during the Dr. Olivia video where she says a what if to infinity.
I might have missed that.
Possible.
That works. I can see that working. Yeah. All right. I haven't really popcorn much. Just been going where you guys are, so I'll kind of popcorn to Peter B meeting Aunt May. This was a scene that could have easily have been done wrong, more or less, but I think it's to the scene's strength that up until they're in the spider lair, it's focused mostly on Peter B. Parker and Aunt May. For him, who had to bury Aunt May, and Aunt May, who just lost Peter. So I think it was a very, very good choice. And here's a neat detail that I caught. Peter B. Parker calls the device a goober because Aunt May calls it a goober. So like his aunt, I think he got it from his original Aunt May, because this universe's version of Peter Parker had a different name for it, right? It was like at the very beginning he tells Miles what it is, and I think it's more techno-babbly. And then here,
well, if you're giving someone an important device, you're not going to call it a goober. You're going to explain what the device is.
Yeah.
So they can actually fulfill the requirements.
Yeah, but my whole point is that Peter B. Parker starts calling that thing a goober because Aunt May refers to such things as that. Like his Aunt May did it, and this Aunt May does it too. I just thought that was a neat detail in terms of the script.
I thought he explained when they're in the alley, he calls them goobers because they all there's so many names to them that to just narrow it down, he just calls them all goober.
Yes, that's what Aunt May does too, because Aunt May calls it a goober directly in the scene when they're first meeting, when it needs to be fixed.
Oh, okay.
My point is that it's what Peter B got from his Aunt May, and that's what he does. And that's what I read.
I saw it the other way around. I saw it that Aunt May got it from her Peter. Both the Peters call them goobers. This Aunt May is kind of like the Oracle to this Spider-Man. So I think it's just a term that they both used in this.
Okay. Mine's not really super detail oriented. It's just it'd be a nice detail if that Peter B did take it from his Aunt May.
You know what? I'm gonna lean with Crimson here simply for the fact that Peter B doesn't talk about Aunt May saying it. He said he called it goober, which would connect to Peter's. Not to Aunt May's.
He said I call it goober.
Yeah.
Which would be fine because that's what he would do at this point anyway. Like I said, mine's me reading into it. It's not a. There's nothing in the script
definitive.
For it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the objective thing about this scene is that I think it's to the scene's benefit that it focuses on Aunt May and Peter B. Parker rather than Miles and Gwen for at least the majority of the scene up until he spots the Spider-Man suit with the cape. And that's when it's kind of he's brought back in to the main focus of the scene.
Are those sweatpants? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny as well.
Yeah. I think it's just
Aunt May
character work. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Good character stuff. On topic of Aunt May, how does she rank with you guys? With other Aunt Mays?
Ooh, with other Aunt Mays. I don't know. She didn't have a lot of screen time in this.
Serviceable. This isn't Peter Parker's story, so I don't feel like she's as important, even though she, as you say, she's the Oracle character.
She comes across as the most tech savvy.
No, Penny comes across as the most tech savvy.
No, he's saying for Mays.
I think you might be right. Yeah. The only one who might be tech savvy by proxy is just the MCU Aunt May, but that's just because everything around her, everything in that universe is super techy now.
Yeah.
I'd say middle of the ground.
Yeah, she's my least favorite.
I don't think I have a Map May that I don't like, so she just fits in, I guess. Of the ones that I have on screen to deal with, she's fairly average to me. She's like I see her as amazing.
Yeah, amazing. She's not my favorite. She's not my least favorite. I'll say that. But I am in agreement with Ryder. I don't think there is a bad Aunt May. They're all just different.
So this is your least favorite one. Do you ever? Is that a personal reason, or do you got an objective reason?
It's more of it's a personal one. I it felt too girl bossy for me, but that's subjective. That's nothing objective about that. The lock for the layer. How does that lock work? I'm asking because of when he went there the second time.
Bluetooth, biometrics, one of the two.
Well, second time I think Aunt May knew he was there.
Yeah.
And let him in. Because he had nothing on him to unlock it.
That works. Or his biometrics were just added.
I find the door stupid because this Spider-Man, or this Pine, he was all about secret identity.
Oh, you mean the brilliant white light? Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
Freaking glowing bright light. Hey, this is Spider-Man shed.
Let's see. I know I have notes about that. Let's see if I find it.
That was very, very dumb.
Yeah, I said, oh, big bright light. I wonder if they're spotting aliens while they're out there too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, broke. No, what did he say? You're not supposed to do that when you got the mask taken off by Kingpin. Oh, not supposed to do that.
Yeah, just how easy everyone's able to take masks off.
Yeah, well,
I don't remember exactly.
First, Peter Parker's too wounded to stop that. Peter B just weirdly lets it happen. I think the most egregious one is when Doc Ock just demasks Peter B. I think that was the worst one.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, that's a no-no. It's
like you could have stopped her, but he doesn't.
Let's see. Kingpin during the fight at the end with Miles, like, I killed a Spider-Man before. I'm like, he was essentially paralyzed. He wasn't.
It was. I wouldn't
be like celebrating. Yeah, I killed Spider-Man. I'm a man.
Well,
it's like,
I think
you punched somebody who was just laying there.
I think his exact words were that the real Spider-Man couldn't even beat me. I don't remember.
Yeah, which is even crazier to me. The real paralyzed Spider-Man couldn't even beat me.
Yeah, it's like boasting that you shot someone in their sleep. Like it's.
I mean, it's true. He's taking his victory and running with it. I'll give him that.
Well, sure, you killed Spider-Man, good, but I mean, it's not like you actually killed him in any way that you should be proud of. Yeah.
I'll touch on unless Ryder, you found something.
Let's see. I have a funny thing in my notes. Noir is my favorite Nicolas Cage performance.
Oh,
pretty good.
Yeah. Then again, I haven't seen the new like Disney Plus show National Treasure. That's apparently supposed to lead to the new Nicolas Cage movies, but
evil.
Yes, I'm aware.
You're evil.
This is a good portrayal. I still think Benjamin Gates is my favorite.
Like I said, I've seen a few Nicolas Cage movies. I think
Uncle Benjamin.
I have. Huh?
Benjamin Gates is the National Treasure name, but the Noir Batman's he referred to as Uncle
Benjamin.
Ben is Benjamin.
Yeah, it might be that. Yeah, like, and I fully acknowledge I haven't seen the last few movies that he's been in. Like, I want to see the new movie where he's playing Dracula. I want to see the new movie where he's acting opposite to Pedro Pascal. Like, I know I hear those movies are pretty good. I just haven't had a chance to see them. So this is my favorite Nicolas Cage performance thus far.
Okay. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent saw in theaters. That was good. That's fine. Ryder, I believe you've seen Willy's Wonderland.
Probably.
That's the Five Nights at Freddy's one?
Yeah.
Where he doesn't say anything?
Yes, I have seen that. And obviously we saw I think on this very podcast, I saw him, he was a captain of a plane, but I don't remember the name of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Left Behind.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I saw that. That was a film that happened.
Yeah, season 6.
Was-
Great
Crimson
movie
was
season.
Was Ryder also with us when we saw Color Out of Space?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That one's not a good one. I don't get me wrong. I love him in that movie, but that's not his best performance.
Oh, Nick Cage roles.
Yeah.
But to connect it back to Marvel, Ghost Rider.
There you go.
There we go. Well, I guess let's talk about. Well, I'll popcorn to Aaron coming home to his apartment with Miles writing a letter.
Mm-hmm.
When Prowler comes back to his
Yeah.
apartment.
Well, yes, same person, different persona. I think the scene is played really well for tension. I thought I was going to be annoyed with this scene going in, but I'm less annoyed with it now because I realized that he searches his apartment before he takes off the mask because he thought someone was there, and I think that's a nice detail. I think he was legitimately just going home for the night.
Do we know why he thought someone was there? He didn't act like when you opened the window that someone was there.
Presumably he saw movement out of his periphery because we see a reflection in the TV of Miles quickly moving out of the way off the couch when he sees the metal hands slide underneath the window. So presumably he did suspect something was there at that point, which is why he did the search around thing. He just wanted to make sure, because it's why he didn't take off his mask immediately, as well.
Yeah, in my notes I wrote down it was weird that he thought someone was there because we don't get any visual aid to his reasoning to think someone was there. Plus, I would like you guys to tell me this because I don't know the answer. What is his vision? Because we see him when Miles actually gets out, he switches to thermal, which is what I thought he was using. So, what is his vision?
I legitimately think it's just a cool version
It
of night
seems he
vision,
can change it.
but I don't know. I'll look it up. Give me a second.
That was the problem I had. I always thought it was thermal. And I'm like, okay, you would still see Miles invisible there, and then when Miles runs down the fire escape, he switches to thermal, and then you can see him.
I just put a
Weird.
Nightcrawler. Is that his name?
Prowler.
Yeah. Okay.
Nightcrawler's X-Men.
Yeah. I was like, huh, this doesn't seem right.
He's got a tail now, and he can teleport. I'm confused. He's got this interesting accent. Springs, did you have anything on? I guess that whole sequence. Well, Ryder's looking into it.
No, but when Ryder finishes up his part, I have a popcorn.
Go ahead and popcorn. I don't think I have found anything suitable. My best guess is just the first vision is more like without the thermal, is just a stylistic version of night vision, but I don't really have anything saying otherwise on that or in favor of that either, because as you say, we know he switches to thermal. So
yeah, and then then he switches to normal when Miles takes his mask off, right? Isn't it from first person?
He takes his mask off.
When Miles takes his mask off to show that it's Miles, it's a first person, like we're looking through the eyes of Prowler, and I think it's normal. Yeah. And then Prowler takes his mask off.
Yeah, it'd be weird if he was using night vision during the day. I think that would hurt his eyes.
Yes. But I think it was thermal beforehand, was it not? I can't remember.
That's what I bring it because it looks like thermal, but then he activates thermal, which is
night vision and thermal have a pretty similar look. Just the color is distinctly different, which is why I think they blended the two together a little bit.
Because it's a different universe, night vision in this universe is purple instead of green.
Oh, infrared light! It looks different.
Yeah, it could maybe.
There you go.
It's weird, but sure. Not wrong.
A popcorn art tackle that I actually like in the use of this film. Some films I don't like it. Is when things get on the lens of the camera.
Okay.
For a depth and immersive feel, they use it in this film at different parts. There's when Miles and Aaron are spray painting and spray paint is getting on the lens. when Peter bites into the burger and like some ketchup gets on the lens. Different instances in the film it uses and occurs, which I think is a creative approach, and especially even more detail, probably in storyboarding, in use of animation, because it's purposely put in rather than a choice later in the line or when doing the scene of the time of a film.
Adding a little bit more onto that, Springs. When the spiders begin their like little mini stories, all right, people, let's do this one last time. All of them brush the camera before they dive off the building.
Yes, it's true. The interaction with the camera, and I like the creative approach in that, and I like the purposeful enough of it that it's not overused, but it's also not a one and done shot of why. Because I know there's some. Gosh, I feel like I've touched on this in a war movie at some point. Not for the podcast, I don't believe, for All Quiet on the Western Front or something else. Possibly I have. But there was some film I watched, and I think I discussed with the two of you, where water got on the lens in one scene of the whole film.
Willow.
I think it might be Willow.
Was it Willow when we discussed Willow?
This is
the show.
The
Willow.
show, yeah.
Oh, okay. It was a one and done, and I'm like, why was that done?
It was on the Shattered Sea.
Okay. Well, then, yes, it was for the podcast. But that usage of it did not like. This usage of it I did like. So it is selective, but...
Okay. Another nice detail is I like that even though that they're distant, like Aaron and Jefferson, Miles' dad, even though they're distant, I like the, it's played without ever knowing their history, like in great detail. You can feel the tension when Miles' dad is calling Aaron to try and reach out to him because Miles has been missing, or Miles is in contact with them. It was a nice little scene with the two of them in the car, Miles' dad and Miles' mom, and they're worried. And it's intercut with Miles, writing the letter to Aaron, more or less. And I think it's just a very good scene in terms of the script writing for more character building without being overt about it.
Yeah, I liked Miles' relationship with his dad throughout this entire film. He did a pretty solid job on their dynamics.
Yeah, I think most of Miles' relationship is pretty solid. I like his dynamic with Peter. I like his dynamic with his dad. I like his mom is barely in the movie, but when she's there, there is still a spark there between them. I have a bit of a...
Yeah, that was something. There was a point where Miles was going to call his dad, but then didn't. I think that's when he figured out he got Spider-Man powers.
Yeah, and he's running into the subway.
I was wondering why he didn't bother calling his mom, because he's clearly closer with her.
Well, I
feel like he would have done that.
I think the reason he hung up on his dad and didn't decide to call his mom is because he knows that they're just gonna tell each other, and he doesn't know how to tell them.
I suppose.
But I do get what you're saying. We don't really get enough on the mom to know with certainty, other than that they're clearly close.
Mm-hmm.
I had an idea and it's gone. Oh well.
Sorry.
It happens.
It happens.
I have a popcorn question that goes into it. In the Collider, how effective is gravity?
Yeah.
Non-existent. As far
whatever
as
it wants.
It's whatever the writers want for their animated scene.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very consistent.
Because my first instant problem was hair. It's Miles and Gwen, leaning against the ceiling, and Gwen's hair isn't like leaning towards like the gravity of it isn't moving as if she's standing upright.
Yeah.
True.
It works better for Miles because his mask is still over his head. But yeah, Gwen's hair would be falling down.
But then there's also, flying taxi cars and buildings shooting out every day. I mean,
it's crazy shit.
Even the Spider-Men aren't confused with the gravity. They're not like being shifted weight-wise, and they're like, there's a gravitational pull in the center or something like that.
We can chop that up to their spider sense is just guiding them through the fight, because that's what they always is. What it always is. Usually in scenes like this. So I don't, like I said, I don't have an issue with the Spider-Man, not having an issue with it. It's just they're not very consistent with whatever it is.
Yeah, because we see in the core, we see all those skyscrapers flying around, spinning around quickly, and all that. And there's a moment where Miles and Kingpin are on a skyscraper fighting, and it's pretty darn stationary when it should be whipping around, spinning like crazy. And they're also really big compared to the skyscrapers. So there's a size comparison issue.
It could be from Porker's universe, and it could be the right size. You don't know.
Every single skyscraper, though? I don't think so.
No, just the one they're fighting on.
I do like them fighting on the train.
The train was
goes
very
through
intimate.
alternate
I liked that
dimensions.
fight. Yeah.
I'll
So
jump to. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask you, Crimson, because you and I think we had a brief talk about this, and I'll throw this question to you, Springs. What do you think the movie was trying to tell you with Penny Parker at the end of the movie when her robot broke down?
I saw it as a piece of her father being gone, because with the little snippet we get with her in the beginning, she's got a psychic link with a spider, and the mech is made by her father. So I saw it as like a piece of her father is now gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see, and she's sad about it.
What about you, Spriggs?
I saw it as this is her tale of how to make a Mark II.
So her entire universe is their mech universe, pretty much. Her comic book line is heavily inspired by Neon Genesis, which is a very infamous Japanese mech anime. Yes, so Crimson, that is one of the things that's playing into that. It is a mech that was built by her father, and among other things. And this is actually setting up something that happens to her in her story, but it's not in the film, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think they do enough with it that it's not bad. It's just it probably felt out of place for some viewers.
Yeah, she didn't get much presence in this.
Yeah.
In fact, she's almost completely removable.
When
The only thing she contributed was making the new drive in a plot sense.
when everyone's talking to Miles about losing someone, like losing Uncle Ben and Uncle Benjamin, does Penny say she lost her dad at that part?
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only one that didn't say anything was Porker.
Yeah.
So I don't know who Porker lost, if anybody. I don't know his story, though.
We don't pick a ballroom, we just dance. Sorry, quoting Noir. He's a quotable character,
Very quotable. Is it purple? No. Blue?
I don't understand this cube thing.
He doesn't get color.
Uh,
A bit distinct from the Shattered Dimensions version of Noir.
Yes. Far more humorous. I'll jump to the cemetery with Miles. I wrote down it's impossible that no one is here.
Yeah, this is the first night, right, that he's passed away?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
Impossible.
There would be a eulogy. There would be people still mourning. There would be cops nearby.
Yeah, it's a little more impossible. No one's around.
Not a soul.
I mean, unless it's like literally like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I think once you're in that range, you probably could make the argument that someone's there, but we don't know the timing.
I think there would be at least one person the first 24 hours.
There are cops, but they appear afterward.
Yeah. That's after the homeless man's getting dragged around. So, yeah, that was pretty impossible. Do we know why Peter B is there at the cemetery?
We know he died.
Oh,
in this
no, he
universe.
saw
was at
that
the funeral.
Peter died.
Yeah,
That's
he was
right.
at the funeral.
You think he would have gone to there, or I don't know? He didn't want to see Aunt May. All right, okay, I guess that's fine. It's all right.
A bit weird, and maybe it's just the use of the animation to distinguish Gwen's world. Does Gwen's universe have astigmatism?
Her world is watercolorish, I think, right? I'm deferring this to the artist.
It's kind of like
Crimson.
a cooler color.
It's blues and purples, but
Yeah, it's
One
cooler
of the,
colors. Whether or not it's watercolor, I did not look that close. If I'm
yeah,
honest.
it has a little of a
Can't
water.
help.
It has a watercolor aesthetic. I don't know if it was actually watercolor. But it is cool that all the universes have their own distinct animation, feeling, and style. In that one, it's that thing we got in that one sequence of Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness.
oh boy, episode
A
1.
glimpse of what the
podcast.
movie could have been.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just everything, or a lot of things in Gwen's universe. I mean, even when she's holding, Lizard Parker in her arms, there's just like these lighted lines going straight up.
Yeah, it's definitely a. I mean, I think it's just a universal distinction, and it's a nice style. I don't know how to tell you what it actually is or what it means.
Okay.
Well, and it's stylistic probably for the audiences, because I doubt that Miles Morales universe actually looks like a comic book. Oh, who knows? In terms of it being a comic, I did like the bubbles. Once he got his inner monologue that
Oh
is
yeah,
prominent in Spider-Man comics.
I loved that so much. As I said in this movie, this just felt like a comic book actually put on screen. That's really is what I loved when that started happening. Then again, I'm a huge fan of like Scott Pilgrim and stuff, so I like comic booky stuff bleeding over into the film.
Yeah, and we get introduced to Scorpion. He's speaking Spanish, but the bubbles showed in English and stuff, and it says translated from Spanish.
Yep.
Because Miles knows how to speak Spanish.
It's such a nice detail. I love it.
And an interesting version of Scorpion too.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like that look, but it's interesting.
I'm a fan of the classics.
He looks better than The Rock does in The Mummy as the Scorpion, but
incorrect.
Oh, two separate.
That is incorrect.
That is correct. I don't know what you're talking about.
That is incorrect.
It's very correct.
Agree to disagree.
Are you saying on design or visual?
Difference.
Both. I would be safe in my camp of saying both, actually.
No. Scorpion King's design is better.
Nah.
But this does visually look better. Obviously, because it's a modern movie.
Something I'll touch on a little is when, in my notes, Johnny, Blaze, Diva, and Porky are giving their stories of how they got here. They all hit the same cola sign?
Oh yeah, they ended up together. They all either, and at least in that shot, they all ended up there together.
No,
it was lined that they were all there at separate times, but they all were said they got there at the same time. The only way for it to work for me is if there are in this universe like 3 different time squares.
Oh, because you're saying I'm assuming you're referring to when they all shoot out of the light at the top. We see they all go relatively different directions.
Well, yes, we see that they all hit the same sign.
They all hit a sign and then look around, but there's lines indicating that they're not next to each other. They're all individual, just showing all 3 shots at the same time. But they all arrived at the same time.
Sure, I agree. I guess to go back to wardrobe again, didn't think I'd be doing that. Why is Miles' clothes go invisible?
Because they were made by Edna Mode. I don't know. It's just part of his power. It's the same reason he can stick through shoes that aren't spider shoes.
Once again, I think it's just something they didn't try to work around. No. But if you got like the Fantastic Four with Sue Storm in the movie, they make a specific suit that allows her to go invisible with it.
And they do the same thing with Violet.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Same with Incredibles.
Yeah.
But in here,
Miles
he can just anything he wears goes invisible with him.
Yeah, it is a kids movie. It'd be really weird to have him stripped down every time he needs to go invisible until he gets a suit that works with it.
It also shows that it only works with clothes, because when Peter B's like trying to find him and touch him, he's waving off the invisibility, but he's not turning invisible himself when he touches him.
Someone was carrying the computer.
Yeah, the computer's not invisible.
It's inconsistent. I mean, I agree. The way they would depict it would be very strange, but the way it is now doesn't make sense.
It'd be weird if they're like, Miles, where are you? Right here, but don't get too close. I'm naked.
Yeah.
Ryder, you have something else to popcorn too?
Good question. I'm going through screenshots. Let's see.
I hear you like the leap.
I do like the leap. Sure. I guess I could talk about the leap. I'm gonna scroll down and find it though. My notes are written linearly. This is not good. Okay.
I think all our notes are written linearly.
Yeah, pretty much. I do like the leap. Let's see.
Well, I heard rumor that you wrote 8 paragraphs on it.
I did, yes. I'm gonna summarize it for all of you. We already covered the problems with it because I wrote down my problems with it first, being the timing of everything, being a little bit off, and the fact that the world's going to end, and we're taking our time to do this. It's a bit of a problem.
Actually, in agreement with that, yeah, we talked about Miles spray painting his costume being like a time of the essence thing. I think that's less of a problem than Miles climbing all the way to the top of a building to lean on it, than do a leap of faith.
I think they're equivalent. The jumping could have been on his way, so yeah. I think that's even better.
The jump, this scene right here is fine, just because we could assume that he did this on the way, but it's the other one that I take more issue with. But I had to take issue with the timing issue. So, let's see. Oh yeah, I wrote a lot more about the dad scene. I'll get to that later. So all the logistical problems. This is very emotionally satisfying. This is where the first time we hear. We start hearing. No. This is where we start hearing the start of Miles's theme song. It's not "What Is Up Danger," but you can hear the strings of it in the song that's playing. And then we also get all the echoes of all the characters that have been encouraging him up to this point. I think the visual speaks for itself, really, of him falling towards the city or rising towards the city. Let's see, I wrote a bunch about that specifically. Yeah.
I think what they did with the colors here was pretty good as well.
Yeah, the colors were great. Shot of Miles rising towards the city, rising to the challenge, rising to the mantle, rising to his duty, rising to expectations. A bunch of other the themes that play into this story are of him just falling to falling towards the city. And I think it's probably my favorite shot in any animation thus far, because it's just how much built up goes into it, even though, as I said, it's the plot is very shoddy, but the character work is excellent. That's how I describe this scene. And if I have to pick one to lose, I'd prefer plot to lose to character. Though if this was a perfect script, they obviously neither would have to lose. I like the fact that he spray painted his own Spider-Man symbol onto his suit. I think it's more emblematic of his character.
Do you think it was intentional for the drip marks on the inner circle to resemble fangs, or do you think that was just a byproduct of?
I'm gonna go with byproduct. I mean, it has to be byproduct, because remember, the only way this works is if even halfway works is if he's rushing through that. So it kind of has to be a byproduct of that. And then I like the detail of why his hands are stuck to the glass, because he's scared to let go, so it adds more to the leap of faith. And we get a reuse of the screaming falling shot earlier, only he's rising this time from that same flagpole that he hits on the way down earlier in the movie. He's screaming, he's cheering this time as he flies back up. I think this is the important bits. Everything else is just my writing drivel.
All right. Sprinks, you and popcorn in a minute. What do you got?
Let's see here. What do I have? Let me popcorn all the way to Spider-Man 2099.
Miguel?
Right.
Yeah, Miguel O'Hara. I think it's cool showing him in, because he is a pretty popular Spider-Man Dimension version, which is I commented on earlier that Doc Ock could have been Serena Patel of Dimension 2099, but they went with Olivia Octavius because it's of this universe that Miles is in. Find it interesting that they call him Gizmos instead of Goobers, because of his partner, who I don't recognize. Probably important. Apologies for those who are like, how do you not know? I don't follow 2099 a lot. I think Sinister's more of the 2099 fan out of us. I don't know. And then him going to Classic Earth 57 of the show to do, the meme of the point classically is. I'm curious if that's hinting at Chameleon at all. And the only other connection that I saw in the film connected to Chameleon was the Chris Pine Parker talking that he's in a comic and serial and a Christmas album. The comic is listed with Chameleon as the villain appearance. And Chameleon has not been in a Spider-Man project yet.
Maybe.
I don't know how it really fit, but that's possible.
Yeah. I have another detail to follow right after Aaron dies and Miles returns to his room and is very angry. The first thing he knocks over is the Great Expectations book.
No expectations. At least that's the message he's trying to go with.
I think... I have a whole thing about the whole I love you, but you don't have to say it back. And I'll just read verbatim what I wrote in my notes regarding that line of dialogue. And that right there is a line I've considered writing essays about, because that's what it's like being an adult, a fan, a parent, religious or faithful. Often it's one-sided. Kids don't understand until they're adults. When has a project, a piece of art, a movie or a song ever loved you back? When did your God last speak to you about how much they love you? It can be a grueling, lonely thing to love in either expectation. I covered a lot there, so
Yes.
It's one of those things where it's as you say, Crimson, the story between Miles and his dad is very meaningful throughout the whole story, and I think it's none more pointed than here, because this is pretty much the culmination of it, I think.
I agree.
And change in the demeanor of Miles' dad, going from, it's like your job as my kid to tell you that you love me back, to this, where it's less required because that love is just going to be there. And it's one of those things where it's just, you, not to be really, really depressed, sound very depressed, but like, I think the best sum up of it is like, when has a piece of art that you loved so dearly ever loved you back? It's a very, very one-sided thing, and that's okay. And I think that being okay with it is very, very hard for lots of people. And that's why, people are atheists and people have a hard time being religious and stuff like that. And the people who are religious are also okay with that. Like they can still be faithful and give their love regardless of whether that they ever feel that in return. It's one of those things that it was just a very, very, it was a nice culmination, I think, of symbolism and as well as just how it works within the story.
Well, I don't think there's anything else I can really add to that. I was not expecting religion to be brought up during this podcast. But I agree.
Yeah. So.
Well said. But with all the praise with the father, I will throw out a negative. It's not really specific to the dad, but it revolves around the dad, where he's always at the right spot at the right time. Every time. In the beginning, Miles puts a sticker, trips, falls. Oh, who's there? His dad. Miles with his uncle in the alleyway. His father's there, even though he was driving the opposite direction of where Miles was, so he'd have to turn around, and by then he would have lost him already anyways. Happened to find him. Him stumbling across Miles in his room while he's tied up. Pretty unlucky for Miles. How the heck did he get into the secret lab at the bottom at
No
the end
idea.
there? So he seems to be in a lot of positions at the right times. I think too much so.
Yeah.
For
the
writing standpoint.
I think okay, my tier list, because I agree with you. My tier list is this: the first time, lucky, but fine. He's out doing his job and he's just on patrol. He already volunteered to drive Miles anyway, so presumably he's going in that direction anyway. So that one I wrote off is half convenience, but there's enough there for me to buy it. I think my biggest issue was
he was at breakfast, the dad. So it's not like he was already gone. Miles left. That means the dad had to leave, go to work, get in uniform, get the cruiser, drive around, and come the opposite direction of where Miles was going. All of that to line up at exactly when Miles put up a sticker and tripped.
Yeah. We also, like I said, I also tie that into we don't know what his patrol beat is as a cop. That being said, if this is his patrol beat, it clashes with why he's at the place at the end anyway. Why he's at what the fuck? It's I forgot the name of the building.
Yeah, Kingpin's place.
Yeah, Kingpin's place. It clashes, like if that's his patrol beat, it clashes why he's at Kingpin's place at the end to begin with. So all of that can work in the beginning, but then it clashes with what can happen at the end because his patrol beat is clearly different at the end. The only thing going for the end thing is that he's in the street and then, some time passes, then we see him at the fucking dinner party escorting people out. And then
he's in the super secret underground lab.
Yeah, and then he's in the super secret underground lab. I mean, presumably he's going floor to floor to get people out, but I assume the lab is on a different elevator, so it's still a problem.
Yeah.
The one I don't view as a problem is the school one, because, he would immediately go to tell Miles what happened to Aaron. So that one is, I think, the least problematic one that I have. Because that's exactly what he would do. He would want to tell Miles in person that Aaron was passed away, more or less. I skipped over one in the middle.
Uncle Dead alleyway.
Okay, Uncle Dead alleyway. That one's also gonna be riddled with convenience. So the first and third ones I think are okay. It's the second and fourth ones that aren't. The only thing going in favor of the second one is that he gets called to a location with a bunch of spider people. But really, really fucking lucky that he saw Miles and Aaron bounce off his car and go into an alleyway. And he had to turn his car around, as you said.
He had to turn around. And it was a distance because they were in a residential area and they end up in the city.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. Having seen images of New York, it very much is like that. It transitions from residential to city or more city-like buildings very quickly, like they're next to each other.
I guess Sprinks, your thoughts on it?
I don't have much to say off of it.
Do you think it's largely convenient to how frequently he shows up at the right times, or
Yes, I do. Being that there's other cops shown, I mean, like the ones at the graveyard, it's convenient that it's him, so it plays into a connection with Miles being the protagonist, rather than any other. Hang on, make sure I don't say that. PDNY cop. It's also New York City. I think they would have a surplus, but this is that universe. For all I know, it's a little sheriff's office.
Well, you know what it could be. John and Jane Smith are in a van somewhere, redirecting cops constantly. Yeah.
Yes, Ryder. Yes, that's very much could be. Yes.
That was a bad one. That's not a jab at you. I'm just making a joke with that one.
I know. I think I have one last popcorn from my notes.
All right. Well, while you say that, I'm going to read them all mine.
You're going to read all your... Okay, go ahead. Go.
No, go. He's telling you to go
No.
while he looks through his notes.
Oh, I thought you said you're gonna look. Oh, okay. I misheard you. What I have is Tombstone being a henchman side villain.
Oh, that's who that was.
It was much like
It was so random.
someone like Shocker in Homecoming, just kind of like a sideline villain that's there.
Yeah,
So
I
it was
felt like
cool to see him.
he was underutilized.
Oh,
'cause
heavily.
He could have just been anybody. He was just a dude that looked weird.
Dude with guns.
He didn't do anything. Did he have like 2 lines? I think he said 2 things.
Yeah, possibly. Well, what does he do in the comics? I'm not really familiar with the character.
He's like, oh god, how to describe it? He's just, if I remember correctly, he's almost impenetrable, but he's like a crime kind of boss, like a low-time crime kind of boss. I'm trying to think of a character to connect him with that would remind you. He's not like Hammerhead, who also hasn't been in a Spider-Man thing yet or movie yet, because Hammerhead's only impenetrable head, and then is a like actual gangster mob boss. But he's more modern than that. Tombstone's more modern than that. He's not stupid like Solomon Grundy, or can regenerate. Resurrect himself, but he is that color consistency of just gray. That's all the knowledge I can think of.
Okay.
I know he's one of the sideline characters in the Insomniac game. I think the first Spider-Man one. I don't know if it's the Miles Morales. I think it's the Spider-Man one. Yeah.
I'll jump to the spider bite. It's one dedicated spider. It was really after Miles. Gave it a couple shots.
It's for the tension. It is absolutely for the tension, but it is.
Yes.
It is. Yeah, I agree. It's very dedicated to get to Miles.
In one universe, it bit Aaron, but we're watching this universe.
Yeah. So very dedicated. It was very funny when he just slapped it, though. We get the intense spider bite. Then, boop.
It's a very good comedic juxtaposition. They do that a lot in this movie.
It didn't even hurt him.
Yeah, he didn't react to it at all.
Yeah, it's just a pinch. That's what a spider bite feels like. Most times it'll just be a pinch. Otherwise, you don't feel it at all because it's the fucking spider bite. They inject the venom numbs your skin where they bite you.
And also, depending on the spider, it might not even break the skin either.
That's true.
I know you're talking about spider bite, but real quick, I talked about Tombstone, whatever, and brought up Hammerhead.
Mm-hmm.
It's not confirmed. But in the spider layer, there's like photos of like all these like Kingpin and Prowler and Tombstone. One of them could be Hammerhead. Maybe. It's kind of like pinkish looking.
Maybe the reveal is that Scorpion is Tombstone in disguise. I don't know.
I don't think that's it.
Just throwing it out there. Let's see. I actually since we're on the spider scene, one of the things that really endeared me to Miles and his uncle relationship, because going in, by the way, I had no idea the uncle was evil. So that was the reveal. I figured it out when Prowler showed up to his apartment just randomly while Miles was there. That's when I figured out it was his uncle. Which is only like 30 seconds before, so I don't really count that as me figuring it out. But I didn't know that, again, Aaron was evil, so I actually quite like the twist. I think it's pretty well done. But back to where I was starting with this, which is the paint scene. It was one of the things that, for me, cemented the relationship between Miles and Aaron. Because Aaron seems to have an acute understanding of that when Miles is, going through a hard time, he likes to do art. So it's a nice, interesting thing to note that even when he was on the job working for Kingpin, he was still more or less kind of looking out for, spots to where Miles can throw up his art in private. And it just, for me, that shows the relationship between the two of them, because he knows how important the artwork is to Miles.
Yeah.
And this is sorry, I got one more detail. And this also explains why Miles was able to show up in the battle during the collider, because he already knew of this entrance to get there.
That's true.
I'll say personally, as someone who consumes and produces art, not a big fan of the silhouette in the middle.
Really?
That's a personal
That's a
thing. Yeah,
personal
I don't know. Visually, I don't really like that addition.
Yeah.
I think it would look better without it.
Okay, well, objectively then, did the artist achieve his intention, Crimson?
Yes, he did what he wanted to
do. I have another minor. I'll jump from that scene to the dinner party. MJ just teleports across the room to ask for bread.
True. That's what happened. Lucky that all the waiters were wearing Spider-Man masks.
Yeah, and Kingpin
lucky that no one pointed out the ones that stood out as being weird.
Yeah, Kingpin screwed himself with that one.
Interesting that Kingpin did not alert his security to these other spider people, because at this point he knows them.
That is true, yeah. I like that when Kingpin's giving his speech, he's, thanks MJ for being there and how much he likes Spider-Man, yada yada. And then the tiny earthquake happens and it transitions into, if only my family could see what we were accomplishing here tonight. And then it kind of pans down through the hotel. Nice detail. Layered dialogue and stuff, since we're...
well, I'll bring up a quick little one. Unlucky Miles that he, out of the entire school, he happened to run into the open door of the security officer's room.
Yeah, I wrote that. I'm like, that's just bad luck. I'm sorry, man.
I don't know why it was open.
Look,
it's a massive school, and he just happened to be in that one.
Well, Crimson, he borrowed our luck. All right, that's the problem. He forgot to take it from Spinks instead. He should have taken his luck instead. There's so much for me to go through, but I'm gonna forget all of them. I guess I could talk about Peter B. Parker's very, very, I was gonna say subtle arc, but it's a completed arc nonetheless. Of his main problem is having kids scared him, and that's why he broke up with MJ. And then by the end, he cracks a joke more or less like, "Do I want kids?" And I think for me that was efficient. It was an efficient arc that they did without having to be too overt about it, because that's set in the line of more tongue-in-cheek for the audience to laugh at, where the arc is done.
Yeah, I agree. Good little arc.
Yeah, very efficient. Gwen had her arc of opening up to friends. That's less prevalent, but it works because she's one of the few characters that's always standing up for Miles. Even though doesn't stick up for him as much as Peter B, she's also one of the other main supporters for him. And I said Penny's arc is laying the groundwork mostly for what's going to happen in her story. I think Noir's pretty static, but he's fucking hilarious, so it's not going to bother me that much. Okay. I don't really think I should I don't think I have much more to say, because otherwise I'm just going to keep going. So
okay. Yeah, I have a bunch of little stuff that we can not go over, so I'm good.
Good, as in you've covered all the popcorn topics you want to discuss?
I mean, there's little minor things here and there, but you said you're out, so I don't want it just to be a writer and me show. No.
Oh, I mean, if the two of you still have things to talk about.
I mean, like I said, I got time. So, Crimson, if you got a popcorn. That was me just kind of like quickly going through the highlights of some of my notes. So, if you got some other minor things to bring up and start a debate about, go ahead.
Very impressive that Miles remembered most of that freaking password.
Oh yeah,
on
only
the
last 5, man.
There was no prep time to even all right, you gotta remember this password, blah 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 blah. Wait, I have to remember what now?
Yeah, it's
I would have gotten maybe one number. Incredible.
Incredible. He is operating at a genius level intellect. I mean, he is just smarter than most kids. So there is that going for him. But I agree. It's very, very lucky.
That really falls into how much of weight corresponds with memorization.
Yeah. How do we think about Peter Porker's fight with Scorpion? I quite liked it as a payoff a little bit. He's not just a joke. He is a Spider-Man, more or less, or Spider-Pig, as it were.
You have something about cartoons?
Classical falling anvil.
Yeah. Another thing I loved is the anvil. I died of laughter when I first saw it, and I still die of laughter to it now. It's pretty fucking good.
I think it works better than doing other cartoon tropes of like if Spider-Ham, painted a wall and ran through it and Scorpion smashed into it, or
Roadrunner stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his hammer could fit into people's pockets, so Miles has that. And you know what? Thank God.
Better come back.
It better come back, and thank God incursions don't happen in this universe.
It could be solved as it's an extremely squishable object that, when at times needed, can change its density.
I mean, it's a different universe. It could just be magic.
It could be magic.
It's true.
I spotted nothing hinted at, even referenced in the movie to tie with anything magic, with my knowledge.
Nothing overtly magic, I agree.
Yeah, well, okay. Peter Porker's floating to the smell of a cooked sausage or whatever. That's pretty.
Levitation.
That's pretty.
He's a mutant.
Also, he says you never, like, an example. Have you never, floated towards the scent of a pie? Showing him floating to the scent of what I would say pie, but there's no pie present.
He's just floating on demand. It's an impressive work. I'm really happy they didn't overuse him, because that character could have really fallen flat.
Does he have 4 eyes?
Oh, with the nose thing? No.
Yeah, because they react with his eyes.
I genuinely think that's him.
They don't treat it like a nose.
It's true. I find it funny that it happens, but I don't think they're eyes. Oh, you know what? He could be. You know what? One of the things that could have affected him, he got the extra pair of eyes because he got bit by a spider. It was one of his weird powers that he got.
Well, he didn't get bit by a spider. He is the spider. He got bit by a pig.
Yep.
Oh, he got bit by a radioactive pig?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I forgot Penny and Noir
him.
look at him weirdly for saying that.
When Peter B. Parker's getting dragged on the subway, or by the subway. Man, if this was rated R.
Oh, no, see, the rated R bit was when his face dragged along concrete.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There wouldn't be much face left.
I wrote that down. I'm like,
scrapes.
I wrote that down. Look, it's very comedic, hilarious. I laughed. He's dead.
Yeah. I mean, there could be a conversation on the level of damage a Spider-Man could take in this, because Chris Pine, granted, he got blown up, but he does die from a Kingpin punch. And then Miles also took a Kingpin punch but survived. Peter B. Parker, I mean, you saw that whole subway stuff. He got really beat from that.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you.
Is there enough to say it's inconsistent or not?
I think, well, if we're including all Spider-Man projects, it can... I think it's inconsistent within the film. Within this film. Okay. I think most films tend to be pretty consistent with it within their film. I can't really think of anything that Tom Holland does that's, too plot armory or what his strength is.
I agree with you. I don't think so.
Raimi's Spider-Man, from what I remember, it's been a while. I think his is a little more bouncing around, but it's still consistent enough that it doesn't break the film. But here, yeah, there's at least Peter B is really, really beat up, but after the end of the subway thing, which helps. But I think there needed to be some drag marks and stuff like that because I think they have the durability to take it, but I think the level of damage that we see does not correlate to what they went through.
What do you think, Sprinks? Are they inconsistent?
It's hard to go off of because they're different versions. I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna take a page out of writer's book and say 50-50. I mean, because
that's fair.
They're similar, but they are different universal beings. I mean, it's like throwing, Peter Porker in the mix. I mean,
he's a cartoon beating up Scorpion. There's a level of like,
yeah,
this wouldn't work if it wasn't an animated film. This film definitely benefits from the genre it's chosen to tell the story.
True.
Either or. Oh,
50,
that's my answer. Right. Either or. Yeah. I mean, I could see it in it is, makes it worse. I can say it isn't, and it's fine.
All right. Ryder, do you have something to jump to?
Let's see. I have a kind of a fun fact thing. So the Tom Holland movies, I forget his like best friend.
Ned.
The super genius.
Yeah, Ned. Ned's character is actually based off of Miles Morales' roommate. So one of the reasons they chose not to have his roommate featured in this film is because they thought he would be too much like Ned, because Ned already kind of took that role. Which is why we don't really meet until the end of the film. Because obviously, Ned is Miles' man in the chair, as Ned puts it. Or his roommate is the man in the chair.
Still can't stand that Ned outsmarted Tony Stark on that suit.
Cover that one. We cover that.
Outsmarted
they didn't think about that at all.
It's smarter than AI too, man. All right.
That's later. Yeah, I guess I'm glad for that reason that he's barely little in the film, so it's not to connect to Ned.
Yeah, I also do think this film is balancing enough characters as it is. I think adding Ned into the mix would just be more of an issue, or like his Ned
equivalent.
Yeah.
Miles's buddy in this film, the friend to Spider-Man in this is Peter.
It's Peter B.
Peter Parker.
Yeah. And I think that is to the film's benefit for the mentorship and how they're helping each other grow. I just went. So you got
guys. Yeah. Do you? We could go back and forth on that. Do you guys think it's insensitive? I'm kind of teeter that on the bus ride, Gwen has told Miles about her Peter and all of that, and he brings up, "Hey, if you got a friend slot, let me know." And she said, "I'll think about it or let you know," something along those lines. Found it a little weird. He's like, "Hey, you got a friend slot? I can fill it."
Okay, well, I guess my opinion on this is that if this was their first time meeting each other, I would probably say yes. But they do have some groundwork laid earlier on in the film, even though it's very awkward and tense. So this is them kind of opening up to each other a little bit. So they are telling each other their stories and stuff like that. So, because that scene plays it like the what we see as the audience, her backstory and everything, is what she just finished telling to Miles. Because that's what Miles says, "I'm sorry, that you lost your best friend." So it's kind of said in the way that she just told Miles all this. So I don't think it's insensitive. They're still young and they're still kids. It's a very natural thing to like, oh well, I can be your friend. It's a very youthful, innocent kind of way, in a way that fits.
It was more for me, more towards the words used, like friend slot, instead of just saying, "Hey, if you need a friend, I'm here."
Well, the reason he says that is like, if you're in, he says, "I'll open up a slot for you." He's not referring to her slots. So I think the fact that he refers to himself kind of keeps it from being insensitive. Because he's still offering her like a place to to be a friend with him.
Thanks.
I missed the original point here.
Was it insensitive or not for him to bring up the friend slot thing?
No. No, I think it's fine. I think it was a way to find a neutral ground to try to balance a positive connection with each other.
Okay.
And that was a way of a callback to work with, which shows that he remembered and cared enough.
So I guess, well, I don't know if you were just asking for our opinion, but did you think it was insensitive, or you were just 50-50 on it and wanted to hear
I was just on the fence, curious on your thoughts.
All right.
I wasn't strong either direction, so I'll stick with your guys' point of view on it.
Okay. I got, as we kind of get to the end here, I can talk about the bookend, which is Sunflower, being brought up at the very end again. Like I said, it was the first thing that brings us into endear us to the character, and I think I like it at the end of it being what, now that we have seen his story, we are more theoretically endeared to his character, so hearing the song ends is a nice bookend. As
you said Sunflower, I was going through my head. I don't remember seeing any sunflowers.
No, the song.
But I remember the song.
Yeah, the song. I didn't save any. I was like, did I not save any pictures of Miguel? And I'm like, no, I did. I saved the cartoon one at the end.
Are you pointing at me?
I guess a question. How far down was the collider below the building?
We don't know. We just know it's under it.
We know
it's got to be at level of the subway, though. So, however deep the subway runs.
So we think of that big door that they come out into for the collider. That's about halfway down, right, to the subway.
Yeah, about.
Okay, so, and then at the end when the explosion happens, there's a hole in the roof. That is a hole in the street. So
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. The far shot that they keep also reusing, showing the explosion shows how high the smoke went, or the actual explosion went.
I think it's close to the street. I think there's only like a couple feet between the street above them and the collider below. That's the they're implying.
I don't think it's a couple feet. Because they show transitional shots of Kingpin going down to the collider, and it like goes up like a couple floors to him, and then goes back down to the collider, but it's like going through the floors.
Okay, no. Remember that their office is at the same level as the subway. For wherever they're conducting the lab experiment for the collider.
Yeah. I looked it up. So, the closest to the surface a New York subway is, because it varies, is 88 feet. The furthest down from the road is 180 feet. So that's what we got to work with here. Between 88 and 180 feet under the surface is the subway.
Okay.
I think it works, because the explosion can open up what's above, I suppose.
I guess that would line up. Yeah, that works.
Would buildings fall? Would the explosion being enough to breach the surface cause at least one surrounding building to collapse? I think it probably would.
Does Kingpin's building collapse? I think Kingpin's building, or if it doesn't collapse, it takes damage.
It's a pretty massive skyscraper, so
it shows the hole from street side up top.
Yeah, when Miles is hiding his dad.
Yeah, it's not in the middle of a road. It's over to like a sidewalk side. So I would believe a building went down. But then again, there's still kind of smoke all over the place. But when Miles is just hanging there, there's no rubble coming down or anything. So it's almost like it disappeared.
Well, like that's what I'm saying. The street collapsed inward, right? Or wherever what was above him.
Well,
It depends on how big the explosion was. If it was big enough to blow it out, or just to weaken it where it collapsed. Do we know if it blew it out or just hollowed it out to collapse?
I do not know.
I would say we don't know. We know the explosion was outward to show the smoke.
All right,
the
then
impact.
I need to use the restroom. I'm gonna be right back.
The explosion from the outward went out, and then street side, it's on a sidewalk side of not being on the road, which makes me think it was a building. Could have been, if it's the building we saw, that was huge skyscraper. It would have fallen over, but the smoke from an aerial shot with the helicopters doesn't show any building laying over in the side. It just looked like it would have all fallen inward.
It'd be like the World Trade Center. It would be pretty massive if that thing fell.
Yeah. So I'm with it looks like it disappeared.
Okay, then that would be a problem.
Yeah. It looks like there's no building rubble, and all the destruction, everything is just what was that minimum of 88 feet from the collider to the surface.
And you have it up right now?
I'm looking at shots in the film because it's just smoke.
Then I'll go off what you're saying then. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. And you can clearly see, I mean, I'm thinking it's just a normal New York street because you can see the street and where it's marked off by the cops of, the 2 lanes of vehicles, unless it was like, an 8-laned just road, which I don't also think was true because it doesn't show people getting out of limos at the beginning of the party?
I believe so.
Because it would be the same road.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay, building disappeared.
I
guess I didn't need to tackle it, but it was just lucky, I guess, that Miles took the chance to throw an electrocuted Kingpin at the one button he needed to press. I feel like it would have had very
risky.
I think it's far more likewise, I guess, that it would have broken it or destroyed it rather than actually activating.
I agree. It was also confusing visually. I got the aesthetic to why they did it, but there were times where it looked like it was floating because it was just that.
The hexagonal panel?
Yeah, we'll say a hexagon, where it just looked like it was floating, but it was really still on the wall, but it was surrounded in the pink of the collider. It looked very strange. I get the creative choice, but it does make it look off. Because then you have to question, why does it pop out like that and none of the others?
It reminded me of the hexagon falling out of the sky in Chicken Little. It was just floating.
Speaking of Chicken Little, you know Runt?
Yes, I know
the
Runt
pig?
the litter.
He looks just like him.
Yeah, it's a similarity. You put it in the Discord as an image of a screenshot, and I went, oh, I get it.
Yeah. Very similar.
I don't know if anyone who worked on this movie worked on Chicken Little. It was not something I looked up. But it's Disney. I mean...
Well, I mean, this was a Sony
Little
thing.
Disney. This is Sony. Yeah. I mean, the people could still work on both. I'm just saying they didn't have creative reference to do so. I don't think that would have been allowed. But they can take, art and what they've already done prior.
I don't have much left. I'll say a couple little bullet points, I guess, while we're on writer. The whole part with Aunt May, it's like, what dimension are you from? He said Brooklyn. I'm like, Miles, that's a dumb answer. I thought that was just a dumb answer to say this dimension. So found that unnecessary. Then when Kingpin and go ahead.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't I know he's a cop, but he's not he's not the police chief. Wouldn't Jefferson Davis be written up or something for graffitiing a wall about his brother, or was it? I guess his brother of Uncle Aaron with Miles.
Well, presumably he got permission,
He said to Miles a safe wall.
like a private wall. So assuming he got permission, you can do that.
Yeah. He said a safe wall, which I think is safe enough to assume he'd make it legally.
Hi, I'm back, by the way.
Howdy.
Welcome. What I was going to bring up was when Kingpin and Olivia were talking about the multiple Spider-Men on the balcony. And she's like, all we got to do is kill a couple spiders. Because killing one was so freaking easy, Olivia. I mean, come on. You make it sound easy.
Yeah. I do, one of the things I like about that scene, as a quick note, I like that she raises herself above Kingpin with her, her arms. Not talking down to him necessarily, but showing that she is superior in some way. They're equivalent mostly as villains in this story, so I quite like it.
How do you guys feel about how she got dispatched?
I don't think
Slammed by a bus.
I don't think she's out of the universe, so I'm okay with it. It was chaotic enough, and she doesn't have her spider senses like everybody else, so.
No, it
one of those comedic juxtapositions.
Almost Mean Girl like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bus.
Yeah, Isekai Truck-kun came out of the anime to try and teleport her to a different universe. It didn't work, but
it tried.
It tried. All right, I don't have any notes on mine. Really so. All right, well, host, should we do ratings?
Yeah, if that wraps everyone. I'm just want to check. I don't want to rush people if you still have something to say, but.
Yeah.
If that's it, then for Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, we'll go through ratings and wrap-ups.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I have a lot of notes in that scene by scene, and it's very hard to navigate. So I think I got my main bullet points out there, though.
All right, good. Well, ratings. I'm gonna start first.
All right.
Myself in first. Let's start with objective. I think this movie's very well done in animation. It kind of stylized a lot of things to come afterwards of animation, of Mitchell's versus Machines, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Across the Spider-Verse, Arcane. I think its term that it's being called is the 2.5D. So it's not 2D animation, but it's not fully 3D animation. So I think 2.5D is what it's being classified as. Anyway, it's very, very well done, very nice. It gives it that real comic book look for the story it's telling and going with. I think the score is very good. We didn't touch on it, but I really like Prowler's theme. I think it's the most intense music choice in this movie.
May I add a little bit more to your score?
A little, maybe.
Okay.
I really like that.
No. I'm sorry. I meant like literally add on to your commentary, not your objective score. I realized the double entendre pun that I made afterwards. I was asking if I could interject to speak. More on the score, one of the things I liked is that Miles' theme is separated into different pieces throughout the film that all come together at the end when he shows up to fight Kingpin. It has his own little kind of like hip hop beat underneath the main Spider-Man theme that's been playing throughout the film. So it's his own at that point, and it kind of pieces together very well.
I agree. Matches with his fighting style, matches with his new outfit. That's him to kind of complete the whole package. Miles. I think the story is really good. I like that it focuses on Miles because there isn't a story of Miles yet in film, so it does give originality, even though familiarity of Peter and other Spider-Man. I like the cinematography use of choice. I know it's a little difficult at times with animation because it's predetermined through screen of animated as such, but the use of things on lens, affecting lens choices, all think were really well. The choice of editing of things like there's a time jump of the vision, or not a time jump, but a time lapse of the vision signs from night to day, and then there's a time lapse of Uncle Aaron and Miles spray painting, like going fast, and that was animated to do so. That wasn't, just sped up in editing. So that was a nice creative choice to give it more of a feel of a film. Transitions, a lot of them are just cuts to next places of using the comic book of like, let's go through it one last time kind of transition. But there's also some other transitions. There's I believe when they're on the bus heading back after the labs, it does a comic book page turn off of Doc Ock to Peter, Gwen, and Miles in the bus. There's a train transition, I think, when Aaron's taking Miles down to show him where to do the spray paint. So there's some creative choices of transitions throughout the film as well. Writing, I think, is fine. Dialogue's fitting for each character. I think a little of it is a little over the top cheese, but then again, comic, so it's okay. It doesn't break up pace or flow. That's just me. I think the pacing's real fine. For an origin story, it's not bad. And it's creative. So overall, objectively, I give it 8.5. Now for subjective, I enjoy the movie. It's not my favorite Spider-Man movie, not my least favorite Spider-Man movie. It has some flaws. I'm not a fan of the soundtrack, but I am a fan of the score. I think it's funny that they actually have a full Christmas album that they made of Chris Pine singing, which is out there. The film did so well; they're making more. I'm excited to see the other ones. It's a good film. So subjectively, I give it a 7.5.
Okay. I guess I have a question for you. Pick whoever writes next. Got to bring this up, kind of a biggish point. How does the Spider People come to be? Because it's not DNA.
What do you mean come to be?
How come they are selected because of Peter Parker being in the collider? Because they have nothing in common. They're all different spiders that bit them. They're not related in any fashion. We found out that it's through DNA with the hair strand trying to get the family back, but none of these spider people are connected other than they have spider powers. But how would that even work? I don't think that actually makes sense.
Well, it would go into, because I don't think it fully breaks it that, Peter Parkers didn't pop out. It's just spider people. And I think that's because the spider, bite rewrites the DNA in someone, so it did go through that. So that doesn't fully break it for me. But what chooses it to be Penny and Noir and Porker, I think is just random. Just a random occurrence of what happened when the collider went off, because it wasn't looking for them. It was a side effect. That's how I see it.
I know that it's not fully random. The reason is because they say that there are 5 possible universes where they can get his replacement family. There's a throwaway line from one of the science officers.
Yeah.
So presumably from those universes is where all the other spider people come from.
Then how come when it flashes on the train of showing the other members of the family, an animal version doesn't pop up?
Don't know.
Okay.
I'm just throwing out there that is theoretically the idea that I would go with just based on what I have in the movie.
Worse. Because that would imply that his family's there in the 30s, black and white. Then.
Yeah.
Which
is still fine.
I think we've stumbled something.
That could be a thing. There could still be a Kingpin in the 30s of the Spider-Man Noir, but the fact that the family he's looking for on the train flashing through dimensions doesn't show a black and white or an animal version.
I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact context of the line. I don't think they say it's there. I remember them counting up, like, okay, we got 1 possible universe, 2, 3, and then it stops there, I think.
Okay,
so there might be different universes, but I don't know.
Well, let's go with the theory that these 5 universes of these spider people were chosen because they were selected to have Kingpin's family. Go with that. What would make those spider people get pulled out instead of just any random person?
Well,
What connects them to Spider-Man other than they have spider powers? That they didn't get bit by the same spiders, and like I said, they're not related in any fashion. It's just that they have the same powers, which I doubt the Collider can distinguish. They have spider powers.
I got nothing off the top of my head. I have to think about that.
All right, that is going into my objective. Cha-ching.
I gave my 2 cents on what I thought of it. So, with that, I guess being a thought for you, Crimson, let's go with you next for your rating.
All right. I'll go with my subjective. I agree with you, Sprinks. I'm not a big fan of the soundtrack.
You could be wrong. It's okay.
Debatable on this instance. Regardless, I do like the Prowler theme, though. It's very recognizable, unique, does its job. I like it. In regards to enjoyment level, it's a good movie. In terms of a Spider-Man movie, I think it's better than what I've seen of these Amazing Spider-Mans. I have not finished the second one. I like the Tobey ones more. Then, I don't know, it'd be definitely a contest with the MCU one, so I'll have to sit on that more. But certainly better than the Amazing Spider-Mans. I think it's overall a good film. I enjoy it. I like the father-son dynamic that they build here, even if pushed in certain scenarios, which I'll bring up in my objective. But overall, a 7.5. I'll watch it again. Objectively, I think I was the most critical on this one, pointing out a lot of minor things, medium things. I didn't bring up too many major problems. It's pretty strong, the script. Characters were very strong. I don't think they really acted out of character in this at all. No, I think they all stayed in character. So the characters were good. I think the fact that Gwen didn't glitch was not good. She should have. The whole talk we just had about how the Collider even brought in the spider people, and how that even works with what we know of the Collider, I don't think it works. I think the damage people take, slight inconsistent, but because they are technically different people, it could be worked with. So, kind of gray spot there. I think the music used in this was correctly utilized. It's a soundtrack to specify. Was correctly utilized, but I do believe in the beginning the barrage of vocal music is too much to the extent it was, because I did write down every instance a vocal song was used, and they, after the barrage in the beginning, it was about 15 minutes each song after that, and then towards the end got a couple more, but they spread them out more evenly throughout the film after the intro, which I think was a good choice. Art, top notch. Like I said earlier, I love to hear arguments that would dispute that. Pretty darn
good luck
solid.
To those who disagree with that.
Yes, I did point out. Well, Sprinks, did you point out any animation errors? You didn't, right? It was just Ryder and I.
Animation errors? No, I didn't really.
Yeah, so Ryder and I pointed out some animation flaws and inconsistencies, which will go into my objective a little bit. What else? The building talk we had with the whole punching through. The fact that they made an entire skyscraper just disappear, that's kind of a problem.
I think
that would be a big problem to the city.
Well, the skyscraper...
Sprinks looked it up while you were in the bathroom.
Okay. The skyscraper just disappeared?
It vanished.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he compared it to where the limos pulled up to the party, and then the building was there. And it's the same street, so
I didn't
The
think
hole is where the building
we
was.
we might have different definitions of skyscrapers because it was definitely not a skyscraper building. It was a tall building, but it wasn't like
No, I don't think it's Empire State or
yeah.
Chrysler.
It was like it looked like a 20-story hotel. Is kind of what it looked like to me.
Double-digit building for sure, which would leave quite a mess if it fell. Which it just disappears. And going off of what Sprinks described, because I didn't have the scene up, adds up with what I recall. Anything else? Tubestone, whatever. I think he just could have been a generic goon in this. So overall, giving it a... I really want to give it a 7.25, but I'll give it a... I know. Give it a 7.5. I'll be the I'll take the generous side. So 7.5.
You can still think and ponder on it. You got the recap.
Yeah.
All right.
And that leaves it to writer.
Yeah, I'll do my objective first. Okay, so not to rehash a lot of things that have already been said, but to kind of parrot you, Crimson. I don't think I found anything particularly out of character. Like I think everyone does everything in character, and I don't think anything breaks in that sense. But there are a lot of cuts to this movie that damage. For me, I think it damages the plot. I think the worst thing that suffers from all the flaws that we found is the plot. As we said, there's I can't think of them now, ironically. But I'll focus on the major one that I can remember, which is the timing at the end, when all the other spiders took the bus and Miles had time to paint his suit, go up and do the leap of faith. The timing's very off when the world is at stake, and that's probably one of the bigger ones. But there's a lot of little things like that kind of cut away at the script a little bit. I think the plot being the most affected, and that ties into a little bit of the world building where, the collider we don't really know how the collider works, to bring all the spider people here. I wasn't here for the whole building discussion, but I'll just take your word for it. Because my only visage of that was when it pans out for the exterior puff of smoke that explodes, and I still see the silhouette of the building there. But that's just me. I don't remember what happens to it, so like I said, I'll just take your words for it. And I think all the characters are flushed out enough. They all have their own thing going, and they're not overused, because the more gimmicky versions of the Spider-Man, being Penny, Noir, and Peter Porker, are, I think, all utilized well. They all have their moments, shall we say. And obviously the main characters being Peter B, Gwen, and Miles. They all have, again, very small arcs that I think are very well fleshed out, because the script is pretty tight, and with only a few minor issues. And this is a movie that I originally was going to actually change my objective scale possibly for, because of the animation being the first of its kind in its terms of its animation style. And it is very unique in that sense. I went back and forth on that. But I think for the sake of my own consistency, I won't. But I will say that my rating has changed a little bit, but not much, because it still, I think, falls in the ballpark of where I thought it would be. But I think objectively, I would give it an 8. The character work is very, very strong, as I said, and while the plot is pretty strong when it attributes to the characters, the plot gets a little bit thinner and starts having issues when it returns to world building, where I don't know the timing of things. I don't know why certain things happened in specific ways. Again, spiders took the bus.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, that. But other than that, though, the script is pretty tight. They do a lot of legwork within their dialogue. One of the scenes I didn't touch on that I really liked is the idea that it was actually when Miles realized it was Peter B's decision for him not to come along. I think it was very indicative of both their characters at that point. Um, and there's a lot to love from all the characters in this movie, and it's certainly a movie. I think this is the first movie that ever made me consider actually going out and buying comic books because I'm not a huge comic book reader. I'm more of a manga and novel reader, obviously. But I am going. This movie has started me. Still has me wanting to collect a few of the comics of the various Spider characters here. So it's still on my wish list to do. But yeah, 8 out of 10 I think is fair. With world building flaws and plot flaws that kind of intertwine with one another. Subjectively, love this movie. I said it from the beginning. I don't really hide it. I'm not going to hide it. It's my personal favorite Spider-Man movie, being that it's feels like a comic book movie come to the big screen. I know I've said that a few times, and it's kind of hard to quantify that for me, but I have a lot of enjoyment in this film. Still do. Got my whole family to like it. So subjectively, it's probably a 9.5 or 9, and I'm still bouncing between the two. I'm gonna go with 9 for now, but that is subject to potentially change.
All right. You said your objective change. Was it at 8.5 originally?
Yes.
No.
All right. Well, that is our season 8. Decade 2010s. Yes.
Yep.
Spider-Man Spider-Verse.
Yeah. Shall I read us out, gentlemen?
Yeah. Next week is the final, and then recap.
And then recap.
I went by real quick.
Oh, go on.
The season went by real quick for me.
Yeah, a lot happened this season, didn't it? All right. Well, thank you, audience, for listening wherever you are, be it Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. As always, if you're watching on the YouTube end of things, feel free to leave a comment and tell us how much you like our opinions or hate them. We're open to your interpretations on the Collider shit because I have no idea. But yeah, thank you for listening. And as always, I have been a Geeky Writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.